Jill.
Hello, I'm Antiderivative Jill, and this is Indefinite Lunch and Infinite Combinations number 54. Wait a minute. No, 55. Today we're reviewing the next original series episode in production order, Metamorphosis. Today we have Pop Culture Curator and Scotty R37, and for the first time today we have Admiral Teague.
Hello, permission to come aboard.
Mission granted. And
hello, everybody. And hello to everybody in the chat. So good to see you guys.
Oh, great.
Absolutely smashing.
Yeah, hello, Pop Culture Curator. Great. So glad you're here. Thank you for joining me. I would like to remind everyone to make sure you subscribe to Pop Culture Curator. Also hit the bell because he's doing a lot of really cool stuff. He's reviewing some science fiction and horror things tonight. What's on the menu for today?
Tonight we are doing the movie Tremors with Kevin Bacon.
Tremors.
Let's not forget the great Michael Gross.
Yes, in honor of Nemesis of Eden's birthday.
Oh,
all right.
We love
happy
Nemesis.
Birthday, Nemesis.
Yeah, happy birthday, Nemesis. Also, you have Lost in Space on Monday and Gilligan's Island on Wednesdays.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Join us if you can, guys, if you like that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. And then also remember to subscribe to The Phantasmagorium by Scotty R37. He and Kat are watching Spider-Man. So they're doing Spider-Man 2 tomorrow.
True.
Yeah. And then James Bond on Thursday, right?
Yes, we're redoing the Casino Royale review that we had attempted a while ago. I was severely inebriated the first time we tried it, and we're going to give it another go because it's the 70th anniversary of the publication of the novel.
Right.
Are we talking Casino Royale Peter Sellers? Or Casino
Why does everyone ask that? No, we are ditching that one. No, it is not. You are incorrect. But you can join on Thursday and discuss. I will look forward to it.
That'd be great.
Yeah, Admiral Teague also. I don't have anything prepared for your channel yet, but I do know that your goal is to help save Star Trek and that you talk about
I follow the adventures of a particularly cowardly bald space robot whose name we will not say in a show that is trending bad and seems to be really kind of falling apart, but everyone's sure it's going to get it together in these last 2 episodes. So,
well, definitely
the greatest show of all time.
You're right.
Probably a better show than The Mandalorian if what people are saying is true.
I haven't seen that, but I definitely agree that interest is falling off because views for those reviews are going down, and it makes sense because of all of the things you say and we say on our shows.
My view count and sub count is only going up. People seem to enjoy commentary on the show, but they don't particularly like to watch it.
Yeah, so they'll turn to you to avoid having to watch it. That's great.
I have watched every episode 6 times. It is my own personal dagger. I have to.
No, you don't.
You know what? I actually have to be able to point myself against some people who come out to defend it. But we're not here to talk about that.
Oh my god, no, we're not. I watch it, but I do watch it one time, and then I do a dry run of the read of the script because when you take away all of the emotional manipulation of the visuals and the voice acting and everything, you strip it down to what it really is.
If I watched the episode one more time each, I would have to change my name to Dr. Van Gelder. It's that bad for your brain.
Yeah, but definitely let's get off of that. For reference to the production of these episodes, because we want to talk about the original series, some of the facts that I share come from Star Trek 365. The original series by Paula M. Block and Terry J. Erdman. The idea to use this particular text as a source comes from my friend Raquel Briggs, who you can find on the Clobbered Times channel. So make sure to subscribe to Clobby and also read Raquel's amazing science fiction short stories. I really enjoy them. So with that said, let's check out Metamorphosis.
Yes,
And
let's.
yeah, but just in case this is your first time tuning in, just know that I really do love the original series. I know that so many people really love this episode, so I'm a little worried that some things I say you might not like. But for me, some of the things feel a little bit outdated, and then some of the things there are some beautiful messages on top of that. And
You can always
Let's just say-
tell a contentious original series episode when Jill does a disclaimer before it.
Well, let's just say that this episode could absolutely never get made today.
That's true. But those parts don't bother me. This episode first aired on November 10th, 1967. The episode was written by Gene L. Kuhn. Oh, hey, I have slides.
Hooray.
And of course, Gene helped make other great Star Trek, so that's why this episode is still so much fun to talk about. He also wrote Devil in the Dark and Arena. These are two of my favorites. So it's no surprise that he goes for another encounter with a alien being, which is something I really appreciate. Even if it's evident this isn't one of my favorites. Also, it was directed by Ralph Sinensky, who also directed Arena.
Oh, wow.
Sineski is still around. He's still out there doing interviews. You can find his thoughts on these things.
Oh, great.
He's 96.
Hey, that's incredible. Glad he's still with us.
He's sharp as a tack.
In addition, this episode was nominated for a Hugo Award, but lost to The City on the Edge of Forever.
That makes sense.
This is not that episode now.
No, not by any means. I just have issues. However, seeing the Galileo again is very exciting. We have a smaller crew piloting, so Kirk himself is at the helm while Dr. McCoy tends to the Commissioner, Nancy Hedford.
Well, remember, this is the new Galileo. The last one was destroyed. So we're assuming either they have more than one or it's been replaced.
Yeah, and I think I owe you an apology, Pop Culture Curator, just because I was under the impression that the next time that we saw the Galileo, it was actually called the Galileo 2, but it is not. So my sincerest apologies.
No problem.
Oh, it doesn't say Galileo 2 on it.
No, it just says Galileo.
All right.
Well, and I did have an opportunity. I have the availability to watch both the remaster and the original special effects. And this is an episode that I watched with the original special effects, and all of the exterior shots of the Galileo are repurposed from the Galileo 7, the episode from season 1.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. Do you notice any differences or that you want to point out?
Well, just in terms of the shuttlecraft, no. It still has the wobble when it's running low on power, and again, it is a reuse of those special effects shots.
Well, it makes sense because a lot of the Enterprise shots are used over and over.
There is one shot, and I don't know if it'll show up in the remastered slides, but the only time in the original series that the Enterprise was viewed from straight ahead is in this episode, and it was never seen again throughout the season or the series.
Oh, for real? I didn't know that.
I was surprised too.
So McCoy is tending to the Commissioner, Nancy Hedford, who's played by Eleanor Donahue. She's portrayed as a very stern, commanding woman, but also she's very sick, so it's hard to discern if her ill temper is normal or if she's just always this way.
Well, she was also...
Sorry, go ahead, Pop.
Well, I was going to say she's from the show Father Knows Best, But she was ill while filming this episode. In fact, she lost 10 pounds. That's why they had the scarf around her neck.
Yeah, and
Wow.
also that's also why she does such a great performance, is because she really is sick. That makes
Yes.
sense.
I just want to say I found her to be like really, really attractive, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, she's definitely gorgeous. But I get that her job is to end the wars, and she has to be forceful and assertive to get the job done. And that is where she's headed, to stop a war when she's cured.
When she does lament later on in the episode that she's sacrificed her personal life for a career.
Well, everybody's going to lament about that. Jim Kirk, my life that could have been, my life that never was, in Wrath of Khan.
True. And his response to Antonia in the Nexus.
Does she say that in so many words, or does she just say, I never loved?
No, she flat out says it.
She does? Okay, I don't remember that part.
I thought
she hasn't had a lot of fun, though.
Well, and it seems kind of odd because usually an older person says that, but she's relatively young still. She's still got her life ahead of her.
Right, exactly. She's in her 20s and she's already lamenting that her life is over.
Well, at the moment, and when she does sort of make that proclamation, she is dying of Sakura's disease.
That's true. That's true. She has a deadly illness that was preventable through an inoculation she didn't get. But at this point, she's stuck in space with the crew who are trying to get her where she needs to go. So it doesn't really help to complain
who has
about
the
it.
most rank of all these people? Does the commissioner basically have a little more rank on Kirk? Where's she on the bridge? Could she Galileo 7 another shuttle and say we're leaving?
No. She may have more rank, but if she's not physically qualified, I don't think so.
Well, she wouldn't be able to pilot the shuttle, but she would be able to. She's the assistant commissioner of the Federation. I would assume that she would say, by executive order, I demand it.
Right. I just got thrown out of the hamburger place for demanding ketchup. Thanks, guys.
I demand it.
She's
give them their $5.
But she's definitely part of the Federation, and there's no indication that she's Starfleet.
She's had a great career. I want to say the fact that she's got such lofty rank. I hate to use this logic, but we don't hear that she's absolutely 100% human. She could have something else. She could be 70 and just look that way.
Possible. But this cloud is approaching them at warp speed. Spock says it's vaguely like a cloud of ionized hydrogen, but with strong, erratic electrical impulses.
We do a great job of flying the shuttle here, by the way. The tactile acting by William Shatner as he's adjusting the view screen and focusing it in, and everybody who's kind of piloting the shuttle looks like they're doing something that makes sense to the task.
That's true. And though I would like to say hello to the chat, we've got Jim's Landscape. Hello.
Hell.
Ahoy.
And Scotty R37.
I'm here. Hey.
Yeah, you're
so
here.
It's pop culture.
Right? Gorilla says, hey, you can rightfully blame the one F on me today because there is nothing memorable about it. I had to ask twice which one this is. And I can understand that. If you're not, I can understand that feeling.
Hey, Franco.
Hello to Franco. And Skokely.
Skokely.
Matt G.
Hey, Matt G. Hey, Jill. Are you Jill again?
Not yet. Not till
Not
Friday.
Yet? Oh,
Yeah, good to see you all. Looks like a great turnout. Great.
I know, right?
Glad you guys to be here. Yeah.
Dave G. Sound, Sub Commander Tal.
Sub Commander.
What? Okay, hold on. Just a moment.
But yes, this is in the original. It is the special effect of the wobbly shuttle with the companion special effect, which apparently was reused a couple times after.
And Tony's here too.
Hey, Tony.
Wait, what?
Hello,
what
Tony.
effect? What effect was used again?
The effect of the companion was used in the Apple.
Oh, the Apple.
And apparently there was another one, but I forget which one it was.
Hello, Edutime. Picard backs me up more than Baby Yoda at the egg eating contest.
We all feel the same way about this one.
Cool Hand Luke.
Sub-Commander Tall says, I love Metamorphosis, especially the giant cockroach who's late for his office job. Wait a minute. What?
He's talking about Kafka.
Oh, okay. And Franco Walker was a bit fuzzy about this episode, so he watched it this afternoon. Wow.
Good call.
And Sub-Commander Tall says, I bought a Camry once and got it destroyed. My next car was also Camry, not Camry 2. So I was cool with Galileo not being the same.
That's awesome.
If you
And
hold on, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
If you hold on for a
sorry.
couple more episodes, you will see another completely different shuttlecraft, and you can tell because when we look in through the windows, it doesn't have that back runabout section, for lack of a better term. It's just a cockpit. It's maybe a more technical shuttle. So there's a couple of other shuttles, maybe 6 more. Who knows?
Yeah, this one's more of an exploratory rescue vessel.
Long range, perhaps.
And your most luxurious one inside, right? Because it's
A little
kinda
bird of prey, Kapla.
Kapla, the Bird of Prey 5, yes.
Kapla.
Yeah. Yes, I'd like to take a trip in the Galileo.
In fact, some people think it's the entire ship. They don't think there's anything else out there, but we'll get to that part.
Yeah. Matt G would like to learn that Edge of Time is making indefinite chicken and queso beef casserole.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Save some for me.
Oh, Sub-Commander Tall gives us rank structure here. Assistant Federation Commissioner, Galactic High Commissioner, Major League Baseball Commissioner.
Oh, yeah, but that's right.
Thank you. And JRC99US, thank you for being here. Did Spartacus take a gel pill? All right. So the Galileo is trapped by this cloud. As they head off to the small planetoid, it has characteristics similar to Earth, except it's all purple and cliffy. And I didn't capture this last time, but of course, DeForest Kelly is now in the opening credits, so I just wanted to grab that at least once.
Hooray!
And last week we got the premiere of Chekhov, but he's not in this episode.
No, he isn't.
That's why I'm here. I represent Chekhov to this show.
And yeah, I think this is our last look at Sulu for about 9 episodes.
Oh my gosh, for 9 episodes. This would have been a great episode for Chekhov to be on because they really highlighted the secondary characters.
Yeah, he was doing the Green Berets.
And yeah.
Scotty, that last shot where it showed rocks surrounding the camera and you can see the ship right there.
Yes.
Is that in the original version or is that just the new?
No, that's original. They actually used a wide angle lens to try because obviously it's an interior set, but to give the illusion of it being outside, they used wide angle lenses and then foreground distortion.
Yeah,
Misdirection,
I was reading that since they use wide angle lenses, you could see the top of the set, but I didn't know if they had corrected that in this version or not.
I didn't even notice it in the original special effects. So
Gotcha.
while it was noted in my research as well, I was not distracted enough to say, "Hey, look, lights, scaffolding." So
Nice. Mark Harkness, hello. He says, sorry I'm late. Anyway, I think that Henford is fairly young. She knows her ambition has gotten her fairly high up. But when you're that young, there will be many who wait for you to stumble.
Yeah, I think Hedford's ready to fight anybody, coming and going. And she
Oh,
looks good
definitely.
coming- and
She's
she
not a
looks good coming and
pushover.
going. No, she's not. She's a tough person.
At least for now.
Well, yeah. Well, when she's got a fever, she has to lay down.
She has a bit of a breakdown. I just want to make clear, as a child watching this, I was confused why this didn't have anything to do with the New York Mets. Like, I thought Mr. Met might show up at any time because of the title of the episode.
Oh, really?
Well,
Oh,
do
is that why? Is that why Sub Commander Tall said
The baseball commissioner. Yes.
Yeah, I believe so. And this delayed reaction from Admiral Teague.
Mhm. Oh, and I got your request. You need to say something in the chat for me.
Okay. I will do so. I think I might have made a
Right.
comment right. Hey, everybody.
And Stark of Iron says, laying down for one more hour before work, but tuning in. Lost sleep from BS at work. Oh yeah, that's right. There was a scare.
Yeah, some bomb threats. Sorry to hear about that, Tony.
That is a horrible thing to have to go through. I
Franco.
live in it, been through that myself.
I already
yeah.
apologized. Oh.
I know. Well, you thought you could get away with it, but
But it was
You
no
for-
damn kids and their stupid dog.
yeah, no, you forgot about the part where you have to use a throwaway phone for those things.
Right, the burner phone. Damn it.
Mm.
Franco Walker gives this episode a B-, and hello to Captain Fandom Nerd.
Hey, Cap.
Hell.
Hello there.
And so here's our purple planet. And so the Galileo is.
Oops.
No, that's fine.
Communications have been reestablished.
It's an in-world sound, Pop. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. And so the Galileo is trapped. Okay, so trapped on this small planetoid. And every time. All right, so the more and more sick she gets, the more and more irritable and hysterical she gets. So
Which really kind of gets me sort of hot and bothered. The meaner and nastier she is, the more attracted I become towards her. That's probably why I'm still single.
everybody has a bad day, and she's definitely this day definitely qualifies for that.
She's angry when she's beautiful.
And I actually don't have too many notes on this part of the episode.
Well, we do get a
full.
Let's just
Far-
say they come out of the shuttle strapped for whatever they need to be ready for, as armed as they can be, and they hear this crazy dissonant yelling in English, which immediately sort of catches their attention because, hey, it's yelling in English on this planetoid, which is coincidentally enough habitable to human beings, which, you know, we get that in a lot of episodes. But then we get a character that's going to be really cause us a lot of consternation in this man Cochrane, and he's been out of it for a while.
Well, he's been lonely, and I think he's desperate. But also, you'll notice when they step out of the Galileo that it's hollow on the inside. So, as a reminder, kids, the set of the interior of the Galileo is completely different than the external model.
Yeah, it was very noticeable in the rewatch. However, I would point out that when this stranger approaches, first of all, he thinks the shuttle is the whole shebang. He doesn't realize it came from a mother ship. He thinks that that's what they travel in. That's the level of technology and size of ship he's kind of used to, which fits with what we see with this character in what I call the Nexus Dream movie called Star Trek First Contact. That movie didn't happen. Star Trek ends in the middle of generations, and no one ever leaves the Nexus.
No one ever leaves the Nexus, but the
Nexus Dream.
Phoenix is still my third favorite ship.
It's a great ship, and it's a lot of fun. We have a good time in Star Trek First Contact. That's a podcast in itself, though, because it might be the first terrible movie or the
Right,
last
but it
good
is.
movie.
But it is worth the mention because we just passed First Contact Day just a few days ago.
Yes, that's right. I plan to be around for it too. I'm taking it very easy with my health. But Cochrane is absolutely fascinated with their tech, and I guess they're kind of looking at him weird because to their eyes, he's maybe dressed 100 years out of style. They don't really say it, but they're weirded out by him in a couple of ways.
Well,
yeah,
he's
and
very
there's something
vague.
familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking. I think is it McCoy goes. He says a lot of stuff, but he doesn't give much information. Much like the script of well, I don't want to talk about it. But there are shows now that say a lot without telling us anything.
But I think this set looks really pretty with the plants and the house.
Yeah, I would live here. The house is much bigger on the inside than it's represented.
Mm-hmm.
And then Spock notices that the instruments are consistent with Cochrane's story of being from 150 years ago.
And I just want to say right here, well, let's give it up to Cochrane. He has saved this booze from his crash for the day he gets rescued, and he just has the alcohol ready to go. Because where does it come from?
The companion, much like the crops, the water.
Yeah, he
Right,
said the
they don't
companion
know
supplies
this
them all
stuff
that
yet.
stuff.
No, but he does say it.
He tells them.
I guess he does tell them later, but like they're pretty quick to just grab it and drink it, and I'd have some questions for Cochrane. before
Right,
he
at
accepted
first.
much hospitality.
At first, he says he has a vegetable garden, but then we learn she's essentially a replicator.
Yeah, and he says he's going to plant a garden later. It's like the way he says it, it's like he's never done it before.
No, he says he has a vegetable garden.
He says that the gardens, the water, were all provided by the companion. And so with the supplies that were provided by the companion, I would assume that would be what, as we go on to learn, that they subsist on for the rest of their happy lives.
You're right, of course, and I don't want
Well,
to rabbit hole it
definitely.
too much, but they could be like, don't you think another Star Trek thing they could have said is, we're not going into that trap of an ambush-looking house of yours, Cochrane, until we get a few answers. I mean, they're pretty quick to accept what this guy's saying.
Well,
I
they
mean,
could have
he-
shot
he-
Cochrane before the credits if you wanted
I would
to
have been like
rewrite the
Mirror.
episode.
I would have been like Mirror Kirk with this. I would have stunned Cochrane immediately, and when he came to, we'd have him tied up, and we'd get a few answers.
And while it's true that the entity does provide him with everything he needs, he does specifically say, I grow vegetables in the field over that next ridge before they go inside the house.
I stand corrected. Now, this is after we've already seen another cloud creature that was really malevolent. So shouldn't Kirk be like, super on his guard?
It's true. Well, they've encountered more than one godlike entity so far. That should
But haven't we
give them
encountered
pause.
Did we do the vampire space cloud episode yet? Like, have we
Obsession
done that?
doesn't show up till
No.
later.
Sorry, guys.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
But
at
how-
this
but then-
point,
but
I
then
don't
again-
think they know that much about what the cloud is, and that's the information they're trying to get out of him.
We retroactively get a story where Captain Kirk knows a lot about these clouds and should be scared, but that hasn't happened yet.
It was a different
Yeah,
kind of
but-
cloud. It even
but-
appeared completely different.
And it
Trelane
was
is a
the-
bit of a cloud.
And it was the signifier of the sickly sweet smell that made it so that the cloud in Obsession was revealed to be a threat because it was remembered from his time on his previous ship. So it's kind of, just because he sees flashing lights doesn't mean he has a seizure every time that there's a cloud.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Right. Trelane's parents look like clouds too.
I know.
And they also had replicator technology. Some kind of it. And
That's my
Right.
favorite sound effect.
so Nancy is getting sicker, her temperature's going up. And meanwhile, Cochrane explains about the entity. He calls the entity the companion, and he's grateful that it saved his life because he came to space at the age of 87 to die. So I guess it seems in the end, the legend who created warp drive was alone and decided to die that way in space.
I just
But
want to say,
The companion had other ideas.
I suppose Alfie Woodward had passed away, but it's just he's not from where the Zephyr Cochrane in Nexus Dream movie first.
Stop
Contact
calling
was
it
from.
that.
He's not from the place that the Zephyr Cochrane we meet in a later movie is from at all.
Which is interesting because there is, and I know that this is sort of peripheral. This is beta canon, but there's an excellent novel by Garfield and Judith Reeves Stevens called Federation, and it does discuss it. It tries to bridge the gap between the original series and the Next Generation, and it explains that Zephyr Cochrane retired to Alpha Centauri, Alfred Woodard. But no, he does. And so when his legacy is finally cemented, or at least as it is here, is he was finally a citizen of Alpha Centauri.
Okay.
I just
Okay,
wanna
so they
quickly
that
say-
fixed that
Sorry.
discontinuity then.
Let's just make
yes.
a note here. Jordy went to Zephyr Cochrane High School, as we all know.
Yes, true. You told him about
Oh.
the statue?
Oh, right. And this episode does mention the name of Zephyr Cochrane is revered throughout the known galaxy. Planets were named after him. Great universities, cities. And
And
the
and I-
three
It's all right,
Go
Jill.
ahead.
Go ahead. No. After you, please.
the 365 book has this to say about Cochrane. As the inventor of the single most important device in the history of manned spaceflight, Zephram Cochrane is an important role model for Starfleet cadets. But the accompanying fame and celebrity made him uncomfortable. When Kirk, Spock, and McCoy encounter him in Metamorphosis, Cochrane barely resembles the historical portrait of a brilliant scientist who made faster than light space travel possible. Rather, he comes across as a mild-mannered shipwreck victim who'd be content to sit out the rest of his life on a tiny planetoid in the Gamma Canaris region of space. A later incarnation of Cochrane in Star Trek First Contact confirms the initial impression garnered in Metamorphosis. He's the most reluctant astronaut to grace the big screen since Don Knotts, which should
I agree.
perhaps serve as a warning to students of history. Legendary figures are prone to feet of clay.
I just want to point out the Canaris is the Latin word for dog, which is, man's best friend. So a companion reference right there in the script.
That is clever.
Yeah. And the companion restored him to his mid-30s, essentially, and stopped his aging because of special powers we don't understand. And now he's able to communicate with it non-verbally.
I just want to say, we do see the commissioner takes notice of Cochrane. She's kind of eyeing him down from the moment he comes on screen, and not in the way everyone else is. Like Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are sus of this guy, but she's just kind of like, wow, we're crashed on this planet. I want my vaccine, but this guy's pretty handsome. Like they kind of show her looking him up and down.
And he appreciates her too.
I would kind of disagree. She kind of gets insulted by him when she's like, he says, we even have the ability to get you a hot bath. And she says, well, thank you so much for noticing that I needed one. I didn't think that she was taken by Cochrane at all, which is what makes the flip.
Same here. Yeah, I didn't think so either. And especially when she literally screamed when she heard that they were going to be stuck there. It's like it to her sounded like a nightmare.
Was it death?
That's one of my contentions with this show is how she flip-flopped on that so quickly.
All right.
Right, exactly.
It's inconsistent, but I did notice her kind of looking at him with what seemed to be, like some physical admiration. And then I don't know if anyone else has ever done this, but you ever talk yourself out of a date? You know what I mean? Maybe that's what happened.
Oh, I have.
Maybe, but when she realized she was going to be prisoner.
She's not going to be prisoner. She's absolutely going to be deleted because she has that condition. So
well,
that's
yes, I know that.
out.
But when she found out that they were going to be stuck there and she wasn't going to get her treatment, she screamed about being an animal. And that kind of reminded me. That kind of reminded me of Spartacus that I just watched. He also does the same thing. Oh, and Zephram Cochrane was played by Glenn Corbett.
Yes.
This before his Pig in the City turn, right?
Is that a Babe 2 reference?
Of course it is, because
I'm just checking.
Of course, the other Zephram Cochrane that people might be slightly more familiar with from the other movie is played by James Cromwell from Pig in the City. Babe.
Wow, so both Babes have Zephram Cochrane different.
Yeah.
No, Glenn Corbett was not in either of the Babes, from what I understand.
That's unfortunate.
It is. I think for continuity, he should have been in one of the movies.
But thank you for the clarity. I was confused.
Yeah, Glenn Corbett was more known for westerns, heavies, cop shows, things like that at the time.
I forget what episode it was. There was a 70s cop show that I saw him in, and he did pack on a bit of weight. And I was just like, oh, Zephram.
So, and like Trelane, and also like the Catspaw aliens, this entity can create matter from the elements of the planet, or maybe the energy. They don't get too deep into it, but that's okay. It provides what Cochrane needs. And to that end, it has kidnapped the Galileo crew to be his friend. Because he said he would die of loneliness. So that's why he's been kidnapped.
This is where we get her true reaction. which is what anybody would do. You don't want to be an animal in a cage for the rest of your life, or
Exactly.
until you die.
I agree, pop culture curator.
And
And
also
so-
the effects of Sakura disease. I think that this is because the fever was growing and growing, and then she does sort of snap when confronted with the fact that no, we're not leaving. No, you're not getting healed. And then she just freaks out because not only does she have the weight of her own life on her shoulders, but she is responsible for, stopping a war.
Yes, which the episode is kind of flippant about at the end.
Mhm.
Yes,
Um,
they kind of just brush it aside, to be exact.
although I don't want to. I know I'm skipping, but
We'll get
Yeah.
there. We'll get there.
No
her
spoilers.
fever is at 100 degrees, and here we have another benevolent alien race who doesn't recognize that most of humanity doesn't really like to be snatched from whatever they were doing in order to be prisoner. So while this is the most hysterical that we see the commissioner, it at least makes sense that
And-
she'd not want to be an animal.
And if you just go back one, I know that they didn't do split focus on this, but I really loved this shot with Cochrane in the foreground, and then we have Spock, and then Kirk walks in, and it's a little softer with Kirk and Spock, but they're still pretty much in focus, and I just like that depth of field in the shot. I think that the director did a great job.
Nice. Well spotted.
Oh, and then yeah, Kirk does say, "Well, we got to kill it," and Spock's like, Are you saying what I think you're saying?" And he's like, "Well, we got to save the commissioner's life, and if we have to push that thing out of the way, we will." And Spock's like, "Yep, sir."
It's us versus the vampire cloud, guys.
Well, see, there you go, Admiral Teague. He was as concerned as he wanted him to be.
Continuity within Star Trek. It's a beautiful thing when the episodes all add up and make sense, and people have done their research in the writers' room. It's just beautiful.
And it's great. Spock does ask. You asked me to find a weapon. Do you intend to destroy it?
Notice the
And-
subordination. Notice how in control Kirk is and how okay everyone is with that and how precise this dialogue is. There's no ambiguity. We're not confused. And they are very much a military organization while still being explorers. They know how to follow a chain of command and get things done.
Right. Spock will ask his questions, but he'll still obey orders.
And he has enough rank to sort of ask the captain a question, especially just in front of McCoy. I mean, there's no other crew present. That's also playing in.
And Cochrane reveals that he would love to leave, which we find out later is a power that the entity has always had the ability to afford. So my question is, outside of this episode and all this time, did he never ask to leave, or did he ask and then she lied to him that the planet has a dampening field? Because that's what he thinks happens. And that she can't
Did
control.
she cause the dampening field? Is that her control? Because at the end she says you're free to go.
Mhm.
Exactly. Either way, it seems they're kind of painting the entity to be manipulative
Well,
with
it's the-
ulterior motives.
It's the paperclip problem, so to speak, if anyone knows what that is. The vampire, the cloud doesn't have human emotions. It thinks kind of like a computer. Even though it has fondness for Cochrane, it essentially thinks like in yes or no terms, like very absolute. So it's the paperclip problem. The man is lonely. I will kidnap more people to make him non-lonely. It's like the simplest and most ruthless way to do it, but it's also kind of how a computer would do it. Like if we told the computer how to, make paper clips for the least amount of money, the computer solution would be to launch all weapons, delete the life on Earth, and then they could mine the raw minerals and make paper clips really cheaply. That's why computers aren't allowed to make decisions.
I don't find any malice in the companion.
It doesn't have the emotional ability to have malice yet. It's beyond that, in my opinion. It's not bound by our kind of emotion.
It is observed.
It is malice. They attacked it. It attacked them when they tried to disrupt it with that device of Spock. So it has malice when it chooses to.
Well,
That's
in
fair
self-defense, yes, but when it is observed when they ask, as they will ask, Cochrane to summon the companion, that it Kirk says, "Oh, it's like an owner with a pet," and then McCoy says, "No, it's something more than that." And so even the softening of the colors of the companions are signifiers to a level of affection that is not just binary problem solving, and the conversation that is had later by Kirk. It's not the typical, "You must destroy yourself because you're killing other people." It's more of a why? Why don't you understand? There are needs that you don't understand. And the companion herself is confused just by aging.
Perhaps we should get to that when we talk about the genderizer, which figures out what gender and what you're saying you are if you're a cloud.
But I think I forgot to label my clips, so I hope this is the right one. This one is Cochrane's best line. If it's not, I'll say it.
Believe me, Captain, immortality consists largely of boredom.
Yeah, that is a good one. Was that the one you wanted?
Yes.
Sweet.
So then Spock is working on the Galileo when the companion appears next to him. And as smart as Spock is, he just sticks his hand into the mysterious cloud.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, where
he's
is
kind of
it?
a dumb Spock this time, for a moment, or he's fascinated, right?
Yeah, he's fascinated by the entity, definitely.
Well, remember,
Is there air? You don't know.
Pop culture?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you had something there.
He has seen Stephen Cochrane step into that field, so he knows it's not deadly.
Oh, that's true too.
But has he stepped in there yet? I don't think he's talked to him yet.
Oh, you could be right.
Oh, yeah. Right, because it was Kirk and McCoy who were observing at the. Oh no. Oh, I'd have to. Okay, so from what I understand, the companion is outside, and Spock goes out the back door to go to the shuttle. He says, "You go that way. We'll take care of this." I think that there is a separation. I think I agree with Pop Culture. He hasn't seen the companion as of yet, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. Right, he hasn't. But I hadn't seen this episode in a long time, so I didn't remember anything that happened. So I thought, man, this is another Galileo gone.
Can I just make a meta point, a Star Trek point here?
Sure.
Is this episode in some ways about what it's like to have a consciousness and what it's like to have a consciousness that then is made corporal? For instance, we see other aliens who have consciousnesses but no body. If you go from a human to, say, an android body, you lose connection with your humanity over the course of time, like, say, Roger Corby. This is sort of Roger Corby in reverse.
You mean corporal or corporeal?
Corporeal.
So you know me and my pronunciation. I have a terrible New York accent. Sorry, Pop. Thank you for the correction.
No, you're absolutely right. It does get into that kind of metaphysical kind of form. Right. This is now two entities which have become one. And what does that mean for that entity, which we will get to?
Which is why I was sort of alluding to the cloud is less sort of it is malevolent in a couple of ways, but it doesn't have a lot of humanity. It's not
benevolent.
It's only just so benevolent, I guess, is the way to put it. Like, it's not killing its pets, but certainly it's capturing them from the wild.
Admiral Teague, could you read this chat for me?
Okay, JRC 99 US, hail, my friend. I was doing the original series breakdowns when it was on Hulu, but now that I have Paramount Plus access, I want to get back to what made Star Trek great. Well, I'll tell you right now, what made Star Trek great is that you built your episodes around friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice.
And whatever I have to say about this episode, it definitely has those things in it. Well done. Thank you.
That is the cornerstone of every good Star Trek story, is that friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice come in. And that's, as far as loyalty and friendship, the B plot back on the Enterprise, where Scotty and Uhura are quite ably planning how to get the number 3 and number 4 people in rank on the ship, are planning a rather competent rescue operation, aren't they?
They are, and they're doing a really great job working together for that. Sub-Commander Tall says, I've read Eleanor Donahue was quite nervous about being in this episode because she had been out of acting for a while when she started a family. And the role is multi-layered.
Well, her performance is fantastic as far as I'm concerned in terms of the denigration of her personality and her loss of control on her emotions based on the sickness.
I agree. She does a phenomenal job, although assisted by actually being sick.
And there's a quote from her that says that she doesn't typically watch her performances on screen, but she remembered seeing this one. And she was actually rather pleased with it, which is, you hear
that's
that.
Great.
Yeah.
The acting in this episode is pretty darn good, actually, especially considering some of the things that the actors or the members of our heroes are confronted with. A 150-year-old man whose story adds up but just can't be true to their minds for a little while at least. This gaseous cloud that has more power than they can muster with their shuttlecraft and their weapons, and gosh only knows if it tangles with the Enterprise.
Yeah, power that they don't understand, life they've never seen before. It's a good basis for a Star Trek episode. Sub-Commander Tall says, Zephram Cochrane, in addition to warp drive, was the inventor of the tiny house.
That house is not to scale. When we see it from the outside, it's the size of like a hot dog stand. When we go inside, there's like 4 rooms. It's pretty spacious. I would live there. It's bigger than my apartment.
Franco Walker says, where will he get the seeds to plant if everything was provided for by the companion?
He'll launch a torpedo with seeds on it towards his planet.
He got the seeds from the companion, though.
Yes, that makes sense. Mark Harkness says, if you believe Cochrane ever looked like James Cromwell, then he sure took advantage of the chance to get a galactic facelift.
He drank a lot late in life. This was before the booze wrecked up his face.
You know, that would be a funny way to explain it, that when the entity got to him, she molded him a bit.
And she cured him of the alcohol cirrhosis and the gin berries on his face.
There you go. Sub-Commander Tall says, and great law schools were named after Johnny Cochrane.
I met Johnny Cochrane. That was weird.
Franco Walker says, I think she overreacted a tiny bit, though.
Yeah. Again, this is an episode that I have a soft spot for, so I kind of, all right, she's becoming emotional because of her physical distress and also the stress of her position.
Well, she doesn't want to die on that planet, so
that's
true. It makes sense. And hello, Herc. Good to see you there.
Hey,
yes,
Herc.
Hello, Herc 130.
If you see Herc 130 in the chat, that means it's a sign of a quality live stream, people.
Yeah, Herc 130 is awesome. Franco Walker says, I thought there was a dampening field stopping the tech from working. Why does McCoy's tricorder and the universal translator still work? The dampening field. That's a good question.
It is.
Maybe the field is surrounding the planet, but it's not on the surface, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know that you would have
a Cochrane says power systems don't work. So what that entails, I guess maybe only larger electronics?
Or there's batteries.
Isn't explained.
There's batteries, and these items are charged, so they'll run until they run out of charge, right? They're not a power generator, they're just charged up batteries.
Well, and as the person with the most experience on the planet with trying to leave the planet would be Cochrane and his ship. And Cochrane is much more of an engineer when it comes to propulsion systems than he is with the power cells that would be within a tricorder.
I don't know if he's on the same level as Spock at this point, but you're right.
Well, only because Spock is more up to date.
Right, right. That's all I'm saying.
Definitely. Franco Walker, that's a really great question. I do like the potential answers. Mark Harkness says Cochrane is fine with the companion until he finds out the companion is female. That's another contention with this episode.
Yeah, he was okay bonding and melding physically with a male entity, but once he found out it was female,
that just throws him off, which is so weird. But when I watch Dalek, hello to Dalek 451. When I watched this episode, I was very surprised that the guy stuck on the planet was Zephram Cochrane.
I have been comfortable. I've been comfortable with recasting since the 70s, so it didn't shock me much.
Yeah, no, I mean the recasting, they didn't do a great job with someone who looks like he would have been the same person with that movie. But
No.
let's just say there's some doubt about whether the movie even happens to me.
That's
To me.
fascinating.
Well, we don't know who we follow out of the Nexus or if it's a Nexus dream. Once we go to a place that's totally magical that we can't leave, how do we know when we left it? It's
But I
totally
do believe
magical.
the event of First Contact happened. How it happened is questionable.
That I believe, and we see it again in Enterprise, slightly differently.
Again. Mm-hmm. And Gorilla's Random Thought says New York is slightly better than Jersey.
You're right. As a New Yorker, I can validate that. New Jersey, though, still very nice.
And Mark Harkness does confirm the companion does know some emotion. She knows her own loneliness. Actually,
That's true.
Not
Cochrane-
until she joins with
right. That's what I was thinking.
yeah, but Cochrane gave her a reason to be,
Well,
and she'd do anything for Cochrane to be happy, but
So-
not leave.
my Star Trek friends, I ask you, are we to believe that this companion was content being alone until this ship crashes on its planet? It finds and heals a human, and then that sort of changes its outlook and like right there. Then it's conscious of like loneliness a little bit. So maybe this cloud is empathic to a degree.
Well, it certainly has to be if it's going to communicate non-verbally with a human.
Well, that would be telepathic. I mean, empathic, able to sense emotions like Deanna Troi sometimes can.
Well, as Cochrane was the one who was feeling crippling loneliness, and that's why the companion went to go and collect more people, I would say yes, empathy is on the table.
Scogli says, note how willing everyone is to square away holes with headcanon. And I did really appreciate when it was mentioned by Franco Walker about the dampening field and how that isn't exactly explained by the episode. And I enjoy hearing what might be the reason for it, but I don't square it away. I'm not
No, this
giving it a
episode's
pass for it. There's
it's a
always
slightly-
going to be plot holes, and that's definitely one of them.
This is
So
a
I'm not, like-
problematic episode in a couple of ways as far as squaring things up. We have and we've pointed this out. We've said we've got a dampening field that selectively dampens things, and we've conjectured on it, but we said it doesn't make sense.
Right, it definitely doesn't. And
You want to call it
But I do-
contrived? Fine, I'll use that word. This was a contrivance. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't.
I'm a big fan of enjoying things, so I don't
Right, that
necessarily have
too.
to square things away. I just enjoy it. It's not the lyrics, you green-blooded Vulcan. You have a good time singing it.
yes, exactly. And when you're having a better time, it's a lot easier to
Yeah.
do that.
I'm just trying to give a good faith answer while still being true to myself and not misrepresenting it. Am I biased towards original series when it comes to Star Trek shows? I am, and I admit it.
Yeah, me too. But what I really do like about this episode is how Cochrane communicates with the cloud. Okay, wait, I need to.
That is a really cool moment. Even if his acting method is to simply stand there with his eyes closed, the effects and the music make it really cool. It's a very alien. It's so different from us.
And as you mentioned in terms of the music, and I know it was one of your favorites, George Dunning's first Star Trek score.
George.
Oh, and
Dunning,
he also scored Patterns of Force, which I also know is one of your favorites.
Okay, one of the 3 worst episodes of TOS, but that's
That
a
is
different
so
conversation.
incorrect. It's better than Alternative Factor.
Yeah, okay. There's like 5 episodes of TOS that I will call out as being pretty bad, and those are 2 of them.
I can't wait to get to them.
Me too.
Wait till
Yeah,
I'm
no.
still here for season 3. We'll see a few.
I remember my first time binging through all of Star Trek, and then I'm like, they're Nazis. What's going on?
Not only that, but the uniforms have the names of particular Nazis, like Hilter himself on the sleeve, because that was the name of a division. So it was just
It's
really
pronounced Hitler.
bad. It's pronounced Hilter, and he ran for member of parliament. I'm not going to be the one to say that word. It's
Hitler,
more fun-
Nazi, Holocaust, what?
It's much more fun
When-
for me to be euphemistic about the Zionists of the planet Zion. And
It's a heavy-handed metaphor for sure.
But we're not on
But
that
that's
episode
not that
now.
episode.
We're
John
not
Gill
on
made
that
some
episode
mistakes.
though. let's get back to the romance here. That he
Yeah.
doesn't realize it's a romance yet, though.
Yes.
He's
Right,
just been
okay.
doing this for 150 years to talk to the entity.
Yeah, he's not the smartest guy. Sometimes
Well,
his intelligence comes and goes, like mine.
this
Pop
makes
culture-
me wonder. This makes me wonder that when the Enterprise crew tell them, no matter, regardless of what happens, they're planning on leaving. How do they know if he's being honest with the entity? How do they know that they don't? Because remember, they had no idea what he's actually telling that being. They just have to take his word for it.
There's a
Yeah.
certain level of good faith, I would assume, just once they sort of are certain that it is Ephraim Cochrane.
No,
they have no reason.
I don't know if they ever fully trust him. They're just that screwed.
I agree with you, Pop Culture. They should have brought that universal translator back out to answer a few questions.
The universal translator says a few things that they're going to have people having a few opinions.
And so from witnessing this, even though Zephram Cochrane didn't get it for 150 years, McCoy recognizes it as symbiosis, and Kirk and McCoy realize that this is love.
And they may be hearing the same beautiful musical cues we are. They're seeing what we see. This episode, I don't think they changed it a whole lot. Pop would be the one to validate that. I think this effect stays pretty close to what we got.
Actually, you need to ask Scotty. He watched the original.
I only
Scotty,
watched the original. I didn't watch the remaster, but I'm assuming that they well, I can only say from what I saw through the view screen is that the effect is quite different. That does look pretty much like the effect from the original special effects. But that was one of the things that I've always admired about the remaster, is that they don't stray too far off of the original intentions of the special effects crew from the 60s.
They rarely screw it up. I just thought, the music was so alien. We have one of our most different aliens. I mean, Sylvia and Koloth were very different too when we saw them in their original form. And those are my those are my favorite aliens as far as how weird and different they are. They are just so weird. And another episode of Star Trek where we see when you come into human form, that binds you to humanity. And without your human form, you become less and less human.
Mm-hmm. I really do appreciate that Michael Okuda and all the rest who worked on the remaster paid such respect to the original that they didn't change it too much.
True. It is commendable.
But this is definitely an intensely close intimacy that allows them to connect with each other despite their differences in physiology. So I think that this idea itself, it's very sweet and endearing. However, what doesn't make sense to me is that the entity can roll back Cochrane from an old age down to less than middle age, but it can't cure Commissioner Nancy.
That is glaring, yes.
It can. It just decides
It's
not
lying.
to. It lets her delete.
Die. Say die.
All right, let me put it this way. We have the trolley problem, and the solution of the companion is I'm not going to hit any switch at all. So no matter what happens, it won't be my fault.
Well, but she doesn't say that. We don't get that answer. So why they don't say so, that's another kind of plot hole in this episode. We don't know exactly why, but you're probably right. She's lying so that she can keep her friend.
She's got plans for that meat puppet that's about to be freed up when the spirit of when the essence of the commissioner is gone from the disease.
Or it could just be for the convenience of the plot. I don't know.
I agree with Jill on that one.
It's pretty.
Yeah, the fact that she just quickly kicked off behind the scenes, I thought that was odd.
Mm-hmm.
You figure McCoy would be keeping a closer eye on her.
Right.
I'm not going to indulge this any further than to say, how would this episode be handled by today's Star Trek writers?
Anyway, don't forget that Kirk wants a weapon, so it's a good thing that Spock was electrocuted. He has a little conversation with Bones. And, oh, hey.
I love that Spock calls electricity old-fashioned.
Yes, right. That he says it's
rather quaint.
It's simple electricity. So, and McCoy says, I'm not a scientist or a physicist, Mr. Spock, but am I correct in assuming that anything that generates electricity can be shorted out?
Yeah, you'd think he'd say I'm not an electrician, but oh well.
That would make more sense because he is a scientist. Being a doctor, he does tests and he studies things, and so that's just a mistake. You're right.
We
Well, and
we
we've
have a
had this,
little bit of imprecissitude in the dialogue, don't we?
and we've had this conversation before, pop culture, but in terms of the differences between voltage and amperage. And
Yes.
I thought, and Spock does use voltage incorrectly, I think, in this particular instance.
Yes. Voltage can pass through your body with not much harm, but amps are what kill you.
So Spock very quickly and off screen creates or just happens to have a device that will scramble the electrical impulses of the entity. Cochrane has been established to love this being by Kirk's superior perception, and shows it here by being reticent to allow the crew to perform the act that could kill it.
But he does eventually say, you know what, go ahead, I'll help you ambush and delete the companion.
Yeah, he does.
I'm
But
all right with it.
But the reason why is because he's ready to leave the planet too. He wants to leave. He's
Not
ready
to
to go.
mention, he's really grossed out and feels violated by the fact the companion was a female and used him and
Well,
manipulated
wait, not
him.
yet.
Not
Not
we
yet.
haven't
yet.
I thought we had gotten to that point. Okay, so
No.
for no reason, he already dislikes the companion. He's ready to let them off it.
No,
In the
not
episode,
for no reason. He wants to leave the planet with Kirk.
He
But
doesn't
in
say
the-
things like, can we disable it for a while and just leave? Do we
In-
have to destroy it? It saved my life. You know, he's
In-
not sentimental towards it.
in the episode, when they're formulating this plan to disrupt the companion and Cochrane is walking out, he's like, well, are you going to kill this thing? I don't want it destroyed. I won't have that, Kirk. He is very specific about, if you want to disrupt it so that we can get off the planet, please do. It did save my life after all. So, but I won't have you kill it. He says that explicitly.
I suppose I even have a sort of affection for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Where he
he's not
thinks that
sure.
he owns the dog. He doesn't realize he's the dog yet. He thinks he's the owner.
And so he agrees to be a Judas goat, which is a goat that encourages the other goats to go into the slaughterhouse.
Mm-hmm. I had to look it
Yeah.
up.
Thank you for telling me what the hell that meant, because I spent years being like, what the hell?
Yeah, I had to look it up too. I didn't know.
It's a great punk band name.
It is.
I would see the Judas Goat.
Me too. It has different connotations that are perfect.
I'd buy their t-shirt.
But this goes as well as to be expected when you have another godlike entity encounter Earth technology. It gets rather upset, and understandably so. So I'm surprised when it will talk to them, even after they pulled the stunt. So, Scotty, could you describe the entity
Well, as they
doing this?
dun 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 dun, and this is so the entity or the companion enters Zephram's wigwam and proceeds to choke out Kirk and Spock, which is apparent by their holding of their throats. Pop.
See, I think
Well, notice it's also turned deep red, showing
Yes.
anger.
don't you
Absolutely.
think it's choking them in the same affectionate way it de-aged Cochrane. It's just now it's got a new kink.
No.
I'm kidding. Of course, yeah. They try their gambit, and this thing shows them, the companion has the upper hand, MFers.
Hmm. But yes, also the entity blows up Spock's contraption, along with choking them out.
Mm-hmm.
William
And
Shatner here looking just absolutely just doing some of the greatest acting of all time.
yeah, you really buy it because of the acting. Otherwise, it would be silly if they didn't do a good job there. And they
Yeah, I'm
did.
saying that unironically. I think that he does a great job of this. I mean, think about it. You're thrown onto a set and you're like, okay, you're being choked by a mysterious alien monster clouds. Okay. And he delivered something decent.
Yeah, just trust that it's going to be there later. So Cochrane draws the companion away from Kirk and Spock before it has a chance to finish them. And Kirk is upset at not having made any progress. When McCoy reminds him he's in Starfleet, like, I'm glad somebody did.
Mm-hmm.
McCoy says, maybe you're a soldier so often that you forget you're also trained to be a diplomat. Why not try a carrot instead of a stick? And yeah, so at least somebody remembers what show we're on. And I think that they've mentioned the translator before in Arena, but this is the first time I think it's called the Universal Translator. And so Spock believes he can get it to work if he widens the pattern of reception for it, and that's really all I need is just one line of explanation as to why I would love to get that same explanation for why the entity couldn't cure Nancy. Just one sentence. But Spock doesn't disappoint in this case.
I just read that the entity knows what's going on and is pretty happy with what's going to happen. It's already got a little bit of a plan.
So
it would be incongruent of the companion's plan to bring a life form to the planet to alleviate Cochrane's loneliness and then be like, nah, we don't need this many. We can kill one. So I do understand. Well, because
sometimes
it doesn't
goldfish die. That's how the companion sees it.
I don't think that that's how the companion is at all. I don't think that there's malevolence in the companion, and I think that the companion responds in self-defense. It's trying to
go ahead.
Well, it's trying to alleviate the loneliness of Zephram's existence on this planet, and I don't know. It is a possibility that that the companion feels a certain level of competition, and it's like, let the lady go because we already got one of those. But yeah, I don't take it as a pet to master relationship.
I think that what happens is, you have a certain amount of goldfish and you like them all, and one doesn't make it, and you're not like a goldfish, so like you don't really see it coming. And I don't think the companion maybe really. It's best if it's indifferent for the story. It makes the most sense if it's indifferent. It's like it had 0. We got it up to 4 for a minute. It's going to be 3 people here for the companion.
Or you could be right. It could be like that kid I saw one time at a petting zoo who grabbed hold of a baby chick by the neck, and you can guess what happened.
God!
They tried to get it away from the kid, but it just squeezed even harder.
You knew Ozzy Osbourne as a child?
I don't know. No, this was a baby, so it didn't know what it was doing. He didn't know what he was doing, but it was kind of sad. It was really sad to see that. But Scotty, could you read the private chat for Captain's log? Scotty's.
I'm gonna try. My Scotty kind of sucks. Ship's log. Stardate 3219.8. Lieutenant Commander Scott recording in the absence of Captain Kirk. A shuttlecraft bearing the captain, the first officer, Chief Surgeon McCoy. I sound like Eric's from the animated series. And Assistant Federation Commissioner Hedford is now definitely overdue for a rendezvous with the Enterprise. We are attempting to backtrack it.
Thank you.
It was totally Eric's, though. Yeah, exactly.
Now, Scotty knows what it's like to be in this situation that they're in, and he and Uhura are not going to leave their friends behind. They're too loyal.
Yes, but it's still a better Scotty impression than mine.
Thank you.
Is Scotty just a guy from Canada doing a Maritimes accent, Scotty? You would be better to speak to this than the rest of us.
I don't know.
I think it was an amalgamation of different accents put together.
Well, I mean, I think we all know that by the time we get there, everyone in Scotland will sound like this in the 23rd century. It's just, it goes without saying. It's not that there's a problem with his imitation. It's that the world hasn't caught up to it yet.
Maybe. But there's a nice reason to be back on the bridge other than to have the Enterprise start searching for the Galileo. And it's that Uhura gets a few more lines than normal, which makes much more sense because she is 4th in command, so she's essentially acting as Scotty's first officer. I would have loved to have even more from her here, but I'll take what I can get. And Sulu gets more time too, which is nice. They find the trail of the shuttlecraft, but then it stops, and Scotty suggests that maybe it's a tractor beam that picked it up at this point. And I love how technical Scotty gets in his assessment of the search. saying that it didn't wreck. There was no debris or trace of expelled internal atmosphere, no residual radioactivity. And so that's some good stuff. They look
And
great.
I do like Uhura's line. It's a big galaxy, Mr. Scott.
Oh, I have that too. Thank you for reminding me.
It's a big galaxy, Mr. Scott.
You know what I like is that they do immediately show them being smart, though, because when they scan, he's like, all right, how many places could it have crashed? And they give him a number, and he's like, how many have an atmosphere? And they immediately cut it by like 2/3.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah, it's some really good stuff. It's almost UFO level of awesomeness in terms of it being a realistic search for the crew.
Well, I just say, like, we see Starfleet officers simply being smart. It doesn't matter if they crash landed in an unsurvivable place. We'll find that later if that's the case. But right now, let's look at every place that there's a shot they could be okay. Way to go, Scotty.
So
I'm sorry, just very quickly, are we seeing the seeds of what we know comes to be?
Oh no.
Between Uhura and Scotty here. Two people married to their jobs. This part reminded me of my other favorite show, The X-Files.
I was afraid you were going to say something else.
Yeah,
I don't know what you were afraid of. Put that in the private chat so I know what you were thinking. But no, just what we see later on down the road is that Uhura and Scotty have become a couple. And to me, it makes perfect sense because they're
Where
like
did you see that?
Mulder and Scully. Well, they're working together and they have sort of a closeness and trust with each other.
Yeah, that is
They
exactly
became
what
a
I was
couple,
talking about.
Well, they do.
No,
become a
they were
couple in Star
they were
Trek 4,
brainwashed.
right?
Star Trek 5. That they weren't exactly a couple. They were brainwashed by Cybok a bit.
Well, not only that, though, not only is that not canon, but Scotty had no affections towards her. They only implied that she had affections towards him. He wanted to immediately get out of there.
Good thing
That's
we cleared
true.
that up.
But anyway, we do have the universal translator, which I really love.
I do enjoy the use of super glue in the future.
Oh, yeah.
I always thought that this looked like Spock was adhering super glue to the base.
I thought it was a little tiny screwdriver.
It could have been. I just see it, and for some reason, I think it's super glue.
Yeah, it's just a screwdriver, and he's running it along the threads of the tube.
Yeah, Spock is working on the universal translator. It's basically a metal tube, and the device intrigues Cochrane. And this is the first real explanation of the universal translator, even though we do see one in Arena. If anything, no matter what else, I love this episode for this. There are certain universal ideas and concepts. Actually, I want you guys to read it. Admiral T, can you read this for me?
On the is it in the private chat or is you talking about on screen?
Private.
Okay, hang on. Okay, last bottom entry there. Okay, here we go. Okay, yeah. Kirk, there are certain universal ideas and concepts common to all intelligent life. This device instantaneously compares the frequency of brainwave patterns, selects those ideas and concepts it recognizes, and then provides the necessary grammar.
I like that explanation. And also, I have some chat here that I'm getting behind on.
It's magic, but it's kind of cool magic. And like we don't have a story without it, and it's actually fairly well. I mean, they at least have a few data points as to why it would work that come from the real world. It's
definitely
it homes in on brainwave patterns. Some things are universal, and it's able to do it. And we've been making them for a really, really long time, so we're good at it.
Yes, and like all really great science fiction, eventually the real world does start to catch up. We do have the beginnings of universal translators today with Google Translator.
You can say it into your phone and have it translated into another language and hold the phone up to someone who can't speak your language and communicate right there. I have done it many times and had it done with me many times.
And also you can hold up your phone over some text and it'll also translate it that way too.
Ooh, I didn't know that. Phones are more and more like tricorders every day.
That's right. Sub-Commander Tall says this episode has the first has first contact. Cochrane acts like he's never seen a Vulcan before, but has heard of them when he meets Spock.
I'm gonna
Oh.
agree, but not fully, because he's like, you're a Vulcan, right? Because it's like he sort of has a passing familiarity with him. Because you figure, yeah, it doesn't square up though. That's why I think that we can call into question things that happen after James Kirk comes into contact with a certain space anomaly at the end in the middle of Generations.
I always took it as a recognition of a Vulcan. In like he says, "You're Earthmen, aren't you? You're a Vulcan and a woman." I thought it was just an identification because he hasn't seen people in a long time. I don't think that there was a disconnect that he didn't know what species Spock was. In fact, he wasn't even prompted to it. So I would say he knows.
Yeah, I'm with Scotty on this one. I think he's just like, so we got a Vulcan, a human, and a pretty good-looking woman, and that's all there is to it. He's a little spacey, right? He's been out here a long time alone.
And Mark Harkness says if the story is good, small holes are amusing challenges. When the story is bad, the holes are annoying. Absolutely.
They're giant like the turbo lift shafts on Discovery. Moving on.
Oh my God. Hey,
Canadian Spider-Man.
read Spidey.
Hello.
Spidey.
And good morning, Antiderivative Spartacus. Hello to the panel. You must almost be done with the name change.
Yes, Friday. I will be on Friday Night Frolics. I'll be back to normal. Bird of Prey 5 says Patterns of Force is a top 10 TOS episode.
I'm thinking I can see the irony dripping off that statement, I believe. I might be hallucinating, but I think I see irony dripping off that episode. That statement.
Pop culture curator, can you read this from Canadian Spider-Man?
Canadian Spider-Man says, hello, folks. Please consider liking the stream if you're having a good time. If you would like to help Antiderivative Spartacus, help Jill grow this channel, then please subscribe and share with your friends.
Oh, thank you. Nice addition.
Spider-Man is correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Resolute Germ says 150 years is a long time not to catch on.
I think he means about him not catching on to the gender.
Not to catch on to the intimacy too.
Yeah, let's put it in terms we can easily understand. He's been hanging out with this thing since about the time of the Civil War, and it hasn't dawned on him what's going on.
Well, they do ask him, you can communicate with it, and he says it's more feelings, but I generally get my point across. So in terms of it, I don't even know what it feels like to be ensconced by the companion.
Yeah, glory.
Resolute Germ says today the companion would outright kill the competition. Well, in a non-Star Trek show, that's right. They go straight for violence.
Yeah, to be fair, the companion simply does nothing. I mean, it causes it by delaying them, but then it simply does not intercede to keep her alive. Or does it?
Right. The companion is by no means evil or malevolent or anything.
But it lacks a certain level of humanity because it doesn't have a human form.
Agreed. And Scotty, could you read this from Edge of Time?
Edge of Time says, TOS doesn't show up on the smart TV when I search Paramount Plus. But when I used Google, it gave me a link to the Paramount Plus. So I watched it on my phone. What the hell?
I can explain that. They bury the Star Trek, the original series, very, very, very deeply in the queue. You have to go past non-Star Trek related shows to get to it. Just keep going down. In general, that's good advice, but keep going down in the queue and you will see the tile for Star Trek, the original series. And it's not what you'd expect. It's a little bit of a weird tile.
Wow,
as well.
Quite literally, you have to wade through
a lot. You have to look at Star Trek, Prodigy, and Discovery, and Picard, and everything else. Everything else.
I'd be curious to find out if that's chronologically backwards. Like if it goes from the newest to the oldest. Well, no, but if it is chronologically going from the newest to the oldest, it does make sense. It's just unfortunate that that's how they're promoting the new stuff.
No, what's weird is when I search Star Trek.
Is that why all my friends who think that they're going to watch Star Trek, they're watching it in chronological order because Paramount Plus is promoting that method?
By saying that the newest stuff. Well, it makes sense for the newest issues to be promoted first and the older issues to be back issues.
Not when your new issues are failing and have a watch time of like 3 minutes per hour, and other
The-
episodes people watch the whole thing and go back and watch them again.
The publisher
I-
is proud of their newest product. That's
I've
all
had
it
to
is.
tell two
Maybe
sets of
this
people
is
that
a badly run service is the thing. They have a lot of content and a lot
I
of it's
just
good.
explained it twice. It's cool.
I've had to explain to two sets of people that TOS is the best thing to watch first, because they try to watch the filth first and then they get stuck and they don't really want to watch it. I'm like, just watch the original series.
Outside the world of Star Trek, I just want to say, as a subscriber to Paramount Plus, it has a lot of content and some of the shows are good, like Yellowstone. And I just find that it's not well run from a technical point of view. For instance, the commercial starts every 7 minutes, not when the native commercial break is in the show. No one curated the episodes. So you'll leave you'll leave it, come back, then go to a black screen for commercial and come back again. And it becomes progressively more arbitrary. And searching for Star Trek is actually harder than you would imagine. If you refine your search to Star Trek, it will show you like Tulsa King in the mix. It's really just poorly curated.
That's weird. Another complaint I've heard about it is that it has bad cuts in the episode, so it doesn't cut where the natural.
That's what I'm saying with the commercial break. What they did was the commercials were put in by an AI that drops them in exactly every 7 minutes. And so the first commercial break might go off perfectly because, your first act, usually you nail it. But then the second commercial break will be off by a few seconds. And by the end of the episode, that last commercial break will come in the middle of nothing and come back. And then you'll go to the native commercial break, have a black screen for a moment, and then you'll come back and finish your story. It's weird as could be. And it's bad for your immersion. And this is your top product. Curate it a little bit. Curate the breaks.
And you can hear all about it next week on our new podcast, Streaming Services and the Things That Are Wrong.
So buy physical media.
Yes, absolutely.
No commercials. Rankle Walker says, when Cochrane joined with it, the companion would have sensed his attraction to women.
That's true.
And Edge of Time says, my replicator failed the indefinite chicken check. Looked good, tasted foul.
Sorry to hear that. It's too bad.
Yeah.
What a shame.
Oh. Yeah, right. The casserole was fair to middling. But those are some really cool emojis. And Canadian Spider-Man says hello. All right. So Edge of Time says, Enterprise is where I dropped out until this year. I've seen a few of these other shows. And a bird told me that Enterprise improves after episode 8.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Enterprise yet, I would say go for it.
Yeah, no, but there's some diamonds in the rough there. It's a really great series once you consume it all. Resolute Germ says Scotty did agree to go on shore leave with her. That's a relationship, if you realized it or not.
Sulu and Chekhov apparently in a relationship now.
Right? Canadian Spider-Man says, good to have you here again. Okay, so the universal translator is a container for Babel fish.
Oh, that's why they had to open it to put the fish in.
Yeah. Let's see. What we got here? Herc130 says, Scotty, you're an amazing voice actor, but your Scotty sucks.
It's true. Thank you, Herc.
Actually,
I appreciate that.
I have heard him do a better Scotty, which is why I asked him to read, but I don't know.
No, I know. I'm sober today. That's the problem.
Oh, okay.
I've got inhibitions.
Dalek451 says, talk about disrespect for the original. Oh, I don't know what that was. Oh, right. The streaming services. Agreed. Mm-hmm. And so Resolute Germ says, pretty much everything from Paramount Plus that is good is at least 20 years old. Makes sense. In a relationship, when you're dealing with a man who doesn't want to go on shore leave, says Mark Harkness. Oh, wait. It's a relationship when you're dealing with a man who doesn't want to go on shore leave. All right. Okay, so where are we here? We're on the universal translator. And so we finally hear the entity. She speaks. We find out she's she finally, even though we knew that this whole time.
How can we communicate my thoughts? You are hearing them.
So Kirk fails at convincing the companion that it's wrong to keep people as prisoners, which makes sense because
And wonderful acting by William Shatner during this part. It's just his way of relating to this gas. I mean, it's a gas cloud. Talk to it. I mean, what he does with this is just incredible. I feel like I'm just kind of almost swept away by his performance, honestly.
yes, and the companion doesn't understand because she's been doing this for 150 years to Cochrane, thinking it's totally fine, or else he's never bothered to ask to leave in all that time. All she understands is that her man needs friends of his own kind. So that's what she provides. And
Are
I
they
love
friends or are they feeder fish, though? How does she really feel?
well, I think she loves him. Well, that's what
About the
that's what
rest
they
of them.
present in the the rest of them.
She
I don't
loves
know.
Cochrane, but the rest of them to her, she's like, I'll get some feeder fish for my,
They're
for my Jack
right.
Dempsey.
Possibly. But I do love this part right here. I love how Spock is so intrigued by this conversation that he wants to learn more about the creature, more about the companion, its nature and history, even in a inappropriate and dangerous situation that they're in. Kirk says that this isn't a classroom, this isn't the time. But it is this very inquisitiveness that I think makes up much of the spirit of when the next generation is good. So thank you, Mr. Spock, for blazing that trail.
Yeah.
And now this next scene, though, is a little jarring. I understand Cochrane isn't Starfleet, so it isn't wrong for him to suddenly become incredibly offended at the entity's gender and decide that he's now prejudiced against this creature whom he seems to have cherished for 150 years.
He got shocking new information.
Yeah, instead of the gratitude he had before, now he feels completely violated in knowing that the entity is female. Why would it be better for him to find out it's a male entity crawling around inside of him? I have no idea.
Or is it because he hasn't had the science lesson yet from them where they're like, nope, it's absolutely female. These things are the way they are. And he's like, ah! It's kind of a little bit Pet Detective, like Einhorn is a man.
I don't know. They seem to. Oh, go ahead.
You think at some point McCoy would keep reminding them we've got a dying woman in there?
Yeah,
that's one thing I thought was sorely lacking from this episode.
That's a very good point.
McCoy doesn't seem to care.
That is a fabulous point. Very, very much missing from the episode is a little more urgency. Hey, let's move it along here.
You know, he's done what he could, right? He's done everything. There's nothing more he can do. He's fine just being, a witness to this.
Well, and as the episode progresses, he does say, for all these years, I've let something as alien as that crawl around inside of me, when he thought that he was being taken advantage by a more powerful woman. And then as he exits the hut, Miss Hedford does sort of call out and say, what an ungrateful son of a bitch.
Oh, yeah, so that's right.
People are paying attention to Commissioner Hedford.
And also, Spock says your highly emotional reaction is most illogical. Your friendship, your relationship with the companion has for 150 years been emotionally satisfying, eminently practical, and totally harmless. It may indeed have been quite beneficial.
So just because you like books about movies about gladiators.
But instead of that, instead of really listening to Spock, Cochrane calls the companion an inhuman monster.
Right. I don't want to be a part of this galaxy if you've lost all concepts of decency and morality.
Yeah.
It's just a wild 180-degree turn.
Now
that comes out of the blue for me. I guess I don't get it.
I guess I got to own this one. I didn't like it when this happened in a different show that was coincidentally also called Star Trek. That's in dispute still. But I didn't like it when someone did this to someone else. I called it a violation to go into someone's head and manipulate their mind. So throwing gender out completely, what Cochran does have every right to be messed up over. And remember, we don't get to see how he feels tomorrow. The time frame of this episode is like a day and a half, maybe. So he doesn't have time to process it. He's been in this relationship for 150 years, and now he finds out shocking new news. It's kind of like you drive past the mall and there's your kid smoking weed or something. It's like shocking new information. He's probably would process it, but we don't see it. We only see a man who's absolutely stunned.
It's true. But I guess I'm not so upset about the fact that he shows this kind of prejudice, but that it's never resolved in any way.
Is it prejudice, or is he right to say it crawled around inside? Yeah, you're right, because he was okay with it crawling around inside its head until he found out more information.
Right. So all I needed was maybe just another scene where he comes to terms with it and still realizes that he loves her for who she is before she turns into part human. That's all I really needed, is that just to hit home the Star Trek message for me.
Well, it also could be Cochrane coming to grips with his emotions towards the companion.
Oh,
he
crap.
always thought he was just best friends, or he was saved by a comrade. And at this point, when he finds out that his affection is not a friendship but actually a romance, maybe he's even taken aback by that and has difficulty moving forward with those emotions.
It's
Yes.
like
I would love for the episode to explore that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Would it be fair to say this would be like as if out of nowhere Chewbacca looked over at Han and said, "I've always loved you"?
Well, if Chewbacca had saved Han's life and then engulfed him in an energy field, yeah, it'd be totally fair to say.
Aside from the energy field part, he has saved Han's life many times.
Aside from the basis of the corporeal nature of the alien, it's exactly the same.
Well, we're going to get to the corporeal nature, but yes.
Hmm.
I'm just saying the level of shock. Like this floors Cochrane.
Yeah.
We don't see the character resolve.
Maybe if they've been in the same locker room a whole bunch of times. I don't know.
You like movies about gladiators?
Spartacus?
Okay.
That's not exactly the reference I was going for.
But it is a gladiator movie.
It is, in fact, a gladiator movie.
And they do have a
it's an away
backpack.
mission as well.
They
Because we
do,
see
yeah.
Spock's father on Earth observing the early humans. And he never reveals that in the show Enterprise. So that's a problem with Enterprise. It doesn't square up with the earlier away mission.
Are we talking about the original series? I thought we were.
Oh,
I'm
we
talking about
are.
Spartacus. We see Spock's father in Spartacus.
No, we don't.
Mark Leonard is not in
Right.
Spartacus.
It
Wait,
no,
did
but you know
watch
what?
The
That
Spartacus
entire
TV show or the Spartacus movie?
The movie, the Stanley Kubrick film.
Mark
no,
Leonard.
but no,
No,
it's
he's not.
No, but I was thinking something along those lines the entire time watching. I did think that guy would make a great Vulcan.
Admiral Nora Sati from the
Yes.
Next Generation episode, The Drumhead, is in it, and then Dr. Philip Boyce from The Cage is in it. But those are the only Star Trek actors that I recognized, and that's part of my job, is looking for Star Trek actors when I watch classic movies.
Right.
I had thought that he was one of the people who was watching the gladiatorial sparring and having the indifferent conversation. But you guys did do the research. Why bother checking it out? You're gonna be right.
We are. But he does kind of look like a Vulcan, though.
I had thought it was him. I thought it was
And
him.
to soften, okay, so here's what the 365 book says about all this. They say, although typically categorized as science fiction, Star Trek is actually a vehicle for traditional stories staged within genre settings. If you ignore the magenta sky and Metamorphosis, along with the futuristic shuttlecraft and the companion's unearthly powers and appearance, it's easy to see that the episode is a simple romance. Boy meets girl, lives with girl, and once he gets over a few personal prejudices, falls in love with girl. Veteran composer George Dunning was commissioned for the episode on the basis of his quintessentially romantic score for the 1955 film Picnic. His yearning, heartfelt melody provided a perfect underscore as the companion made flesh expressed her feelings to Cochrane, and it would be heard under romantic scenes in several subsequent episodes of Star Trek. Oh, so it'll be used again for more episodes. Fun. And we briefly get back to the Enterprise,
Hey, Phantom Boomer.
and they're going.
And Mr. Brown. Heavens.
Oh, right. Before we get back to the Enterprise, hey, Mr. Brown. I
Wow.
haven't gotten back to the chat yet,
Hello, guys.
but like Scotty was saying earlier, we see Nancy crying that Cochrane rejects the love that he's been gifted when she's never been in love herself, and that's it. That's the crux of her character development. And the last we hear from her as a human only. Granted, it's because she dies, but like I said, just some things are off for me in this episode. I will say though that her acting is great.
Well, it would have been nice if Bones would have, she's delirious. She's dying, Jim. Don't trust what she
Right.
says. It could be a fever dream.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like you said, it's well played. She does a good job with this, with what they gave her.
And it's a brief one, but could you read it for me, Pop Culture Curator? The ship's log.
Sure. Ship's log, stardate 3220.3. Lieutenant Commander Scott reporting in lieu of the captain and the first officer. We are continuing our search for the missing shuttlecraft.
And they're having to go through thousands of type H2M asteroids in order to
and
find it.
This is where Scotty says a few smart things in a row to narrow down where they search. He's like, how many have an atmosphere?
That's right. He narrows them down. And Kirk.
They significantly increase their chances of finding him. It's still not good, though.
Right. Kirk tries to explain that Cochrane is dying as a prisoner on the planet. He says, oh, actually, you guys should say this. I'll be the companion. Admiral Teague, please be Captain Kirk.
Sure. Does Kirk begin this exchange, and then we're reading off this? Is it in the private chat, or is it in?
Yeah, it's in the private chat.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if we were reading off the screen. So okay, I see the ship's log. So okay, he'll not continue. He'll cease to exist. By your feeling for him, you are condemning him to an existence you'll find unbearable. He will cease to exist.
He does not age. He remains forever.
You speak of his body. I speak of his spirit. Companion, inside the shelter, a female of our species is dying. She will not continue. That is what will happen to the man unless you release all of us.
I do not understand.
Our species can only survive if we have obstacles to overcome. You take those obstacles, you take away all obstacles. Without them to strengthen us, we'll weaken and die. You regard the man only as a toy. You amuse yourself with him.
And Kirk continues by saying she can't really love him because they're different. And Kirk is really going there. He's really going straight for the guilt trip and the invalidation of her feelings. So she feels shamed for being who she is and goes to merge with Commissioner Nancy. I think that's a very odd way to resolve this issue. I get that Nancy would be dead if the entity didn't do this, but the message for me is slightly off. And Kirk did say that he did it this way to try to convince her of the hopelessness of it. Love sometimes expresses itself in sacrifice, which is true.
He's trying to pull a Landrew on the emotional vampire cloud. He's basically trying to, like you said, he's guilt tripping it. He's trying to deal with it, but he can't really connect with it because it's not human. It's life, but not as we know it.
And like you were saying earlier, Admiral Teague, it kind of does do things a little bit computery, a little bit technically. If I were human, then I can love. So then the entity merges with Nancy. We don't really hear from Nancy again, just the entity.
Well, we hear her say that she's both of them?
Yes.
But that's exactly what a body snatcher would say.
Exactly. I don't really know if we hear from Nancy again. What?
This is the point where they should realize that it was waiting for her to die so it could take over her body.
I feel
wow.
That way.
Okay.
I have always felt that way.
Well,
my pessimism.
She was fridged. So
even if this wasn't the intent to just take over her body to be with Cochrane. Even if that wasn't the intent, my main concern is what about Nancy and her family? I get that for some reason the entity can't leave the planet now, but can
They can
Nancy's
always
family
visit the
come and visit?
planetoid. Yeah, they can come
Yeah,
to Beta Canaris and go to the planetoid, right?
Well, you
that's
don't
true.
know. You don't know if Nancy actually does exist in that shell anymore. We've got no indication of that.
Yeah, I would be
She
asking
did
her
study
Yes.
questions
rights off her entire life.
I might
Yes.
say something to her like, "Where did you go to college, Commissioner?" You know, I might want to know if it knows anything. I'd be looking at her bio on my cell phone and being like, "So, you know, when's your
Yes,
birthday?"
exactly. This episode doesn't address if Nancy's still in there, if we can actually talk to her or not. And they don't mention bringing her family over, or usually when stuff like this happens, when someone gets stranded or settled on a world, Kirk will talk about sending envoys to help with the standard of living. So I think even that could be offered. But what I think would make this episode even better is if they could find anyone who would like to settle on the little planet to make the community richer.
There
There's
is a
also just,
there
I'm
is a
sorry.
request by
I
Cochrane to say,
know.
There you go. That yeah, I think we're all gonna have a problem with it when we get there. Let's get there.
I don't have a problem.
You know what? You've just had like one of the high commissioners of the UN disappears, and you're like, "Don't worry about it." But you're the captain of the aircraft carrier they were on. Yeah, you know they're gone. Don't worry about it. What's
Yeah.
up with that?
Yeah, they just say goodbye. See you later. Guess we're gonna find someone else to stop that war.
Oh,
we
the final
are objective here. This is an objective problem in this story.
Well, not only that, but they said we'll find another woman. So I guess only a woman can stop that war.
I'm sorry, I had to mute my
Yeah.
microphone to laugh, but you are absolutely correct. Pop culture.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was a joke or if they really do mean that primarily for ending wars they hire women. And that
No, I
could be
think the
possible.
script was just that glib.
Or maybe for some reason for this particular mission a woman was best. We don't know the details of that mission.
Oh, you figure it would be based on the skills of the ambassador,
Well, yes, obviously, but
not the
maybe it was
gender. Yeah.
but it could be it was a matriarchal society or something like that. But even when she's now in a physical form, Cochrane never comes to terms with her being a female entity.
How much of this has to do with the fact that Gene Roddenberry was born in 1921?
I don't know. But then he comes to terms with it because she's beautiful, but not because of the intimacy they shared for 150 years.
Good
And
thing
then
she
maybe,
happened to be good looking. Yeah.
and then maybe I forget all of my complaints because of what she does next.
By the
Nancy,
way, did somebody note this? Because I just had a little audio glitch. Did somebody note like now she's a we?
I don't. Now she's what?
She's referring to. Isn't she speaking kind of in plural about them?
Oh, yes.
When Nancy's body speaks, the delivery is we are both kind of here. You know, we see that they're we us now.
Yes. Yes, she does that. So one part of the episode that makes me forget about all my complaints is when she does this with her scarf. Nancy is holding up her scarf to mimic how she saw Cochrane when she was the companion. It's a sweet and symbolic show of her former self, as if to tell me, no, it's okay. We didn't forget that she was an entity, and neither does Cochrane. We just couldn't figure out how to say it, so we'll just show it to you. And I think that's very lovely and sweet. And when I see it, I kind of forgot why I was mad. But we have the rest of the live stream to remember it. And also,
it is absolutely well filmed, and it's absolutely charming. And I loved it as a kid, and I still love this shot now.
Exactly. This is the best part of the episode for me. Here's what the 360. This is what the 365 book has to say. Compared to the jaw-dropping visual effects generated with today's technology, the tech available in the 1960s was, as Spock might say, all stone knives and bearskins. The downside of low-tech effects was that aliens often look like men in rubber suits. The upside was that resourceful collaborations between the director, costume designer, and art director resulted in visuals that transcend their limitations. In Metamorphosis, a seemingly inconsequential piece of wardrobe becomes a visual metaphor for Nancy Hedford's transformation. Hedford wears a multicolored headscarf tightly wrapped to match Hedford's tightly wrapped personality. When she first arrives on Zephyr Cochrane's planetoid, she loosens it and casts it aside during her illness, and then, after she is reborn as the Nancy companion chimera, she drapes it across her shoulders like an elegant stole. But it isn't until the last act of the episode, when she holds the scarf before her eyes to observe Cochrane through the translucent fabric, that the viewer experiences a small epiphany. The patterns on the scarf resembles that of the alien companion's glowing skin. The hybrid entity, which now sees through Nancy's human eyes, is attempting to catch a glimpse of Cochrane, as the companion once saw him. It is a beautifully poetic visual metaphor that worked perfectly for an audience of the pre-CGI era.
I got to agree with that. It was a great. Their camera people were great on Star Trek. Their camera work is always really good.
Mm-hmm. And so, thus having melted my cold heart, Cochrane wants to take her around the galaxy, but she reveals she can't do that or she'll die. In fact, they're both going to age and die together, and so her super replicator powers are gone, so it's a good thing. Cochrane has been keeping up with that vegetable garden, because it might be a little while before Starfleet starts to send provisions and hydroponic kits. I don't know. They don't talk about it, but hopefully they do it.
Starfleet's not going to be sending provisions because Jim Kirk isn't going to tell anybody about this.
Oh, shoot. You're right. That's the worst part of this episode. They're going to stay together, but
it doesn't make any sense.
But Cochrane is still stuck here now. Even if he loves her and wants to stay with her, why not leave for a little while to see what's going on with all he's missed out on? I get that he came here to die and was given another life by the companion, so it makes sense to stay with her if he loves her, but he's young enough to want to go see something, and he can always come back.
I feel bad. Like, I feel like Cochrane, like he should be able to take vacations away from his wife. And he's not going to make 300 now. He's given up a lot.
Oh, and I have another clip here. I don't remember what it says. Let's play it.
I have honors enough, but you will age, both of you.
Big deal. We all do. I never understood why this was a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she's going to age too. They're going to age together.
I'm saying, so like Cochrane's only going to live to see 280 years of our time. He's already immensely old. He's older than the United States. He's like 230 years old.
This is just a bonus to him, so I guess he's fine with it.
It's like a playoff game. It's double overtime. He doesn't care.
And then he says that line that Scotty was mentioning earlier. Captain, don't tell them about me. And Kirk's like, okay.
The hand waving away serious problems. And like this is a little bit of an issue. Like in your military political institution, they've just basically done the equivalent of losing like a senator or the vice president or the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. They just lost them, and they're going to be like, don't worry about it. I don't. It's too convenient.
Yeah, absolutely. But we do have lots of people here in the chat. Let's see what's going on in the chat here. Franco Walker says, I'm surprised Kirk didn't try to seduce the companion.
Didn't have time.
Pop culture curator, can you read this from Dalek451?
Dalek451 in the chat says, funny story. I saw an advert for Paramount Plus on TV once, and at the end it said Mountain of Entertainment. I then turned to my dad and said, more like a mountain of shit. And he agreed with me.
The Yellowstone shows are really good.
Well, give it time, guys. You won't find TOS on there eventually. That's why they're moving it further in the back.
Well,
Eventually
you
be
know
gone.
what? I would say that that's a conspiracy theory, but the fact is that they moved off all the movies. So you're definitely right.
Well, that
I
had to
think
do
you're
with
probably
ownership,
right.
I think. Because the TV and movies have always been slightly different licenses.
But I thought they merged. I thought Paramount
They do.
and
Paramount
They
and
CBS.
CBS is all
unmerged
the same.
is what I think I heard this on Midnight's Edge. Don't quote me here, but maybe they have unmerged again because of the many moving wheels and gears of what's gone on in
Oh, give me
Hollywood
a
for the last
break.
10, 12 years.
That's
Well, you know, in
ah,
about
but
2010,
that's
how many movie houses were there and production houses? And now
sorry.
we have about 5.
But that's one of the things that I think Star Trek needs to come back is for those two to be merged. And the fact if they're unmerged again, that's not good. But I haven't heard about that. So I'll have to look that up later. That's not good news.
There's a slight rights difference between the movies and the TV shows. There always have been. But
Yeah.
I think the people who own the movies and the people who own the TV stuff, either their corporate orbits passed for a little while, or they're back in the same corporate orbit and they can do it now. But or they're out of this. Rather, they're now no longer in the same corporate orbit, and the movies are doing better off that platform or something. It's if they were losing money over it, they'd just go back to Paramount Plus, right?
Doesn't surprise me.
It's not like they can show like ships from the movies in an episode of one of the modern seasons or anything.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think
we
that they're
just saw
losing
that.
money, but
I know.
Right. I'm saying it for our audience. So, yeah, I'm thinking on what you're saying there. Try to square it up. I mean, hey.
There'd have to be some sort of coming together of those licenses if they actually showed them in the modern stuff.
Right, Scotty. That's why I believe that they're still merged at this point.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Then why are the movies not on the Paramount Plus is weird, people. I said it before. I just leave it at that.
Well, it was whoever said. Did you say that they weren't making it? Maybe they're not making money. We don't know because they can't. They don't give us our information.
My
chances are
this. Why would they take them off Paramount Plus if that was making them money? And why wouldn't they put them back on Paramount Plus if that's losing the money? So apparently, if you own separate rights and you have a choice, you don't want to be on Paramount Plus. Make of it what you will.
Pop culture?
No, I was thinking it's not that they don't make money by showing the original series. They don't make as much as when they're pushing the new stuff. And they want people to, just like Disney with Star Wars, they want to push the old stuff out of our peripheral so they can replace it.
That makes sense to me.
May I just take a stab at maybe everyone's goals run in the same direction and the rights are split, but people feel the way Pop feels too, right? Like it's like a sort of a gentleman's agreement between these two parties. Like, you know, let's try to forget about the old Star Trek and we'll sell our movies on our own.
And that follows with the problem of not being able to see the series on the front page of the streaming service. Edge of Time says, I like how this episode raised the stakes. Overall, I thought it was effective.
My opinion of the episode went down a little bit as we analyzed it.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Mr. Brown says World War II. But there's a certain charm to it but there are also issues. I have very mixed opinions about this episode.
Here's my feeling, right? I listened to another Star Trek podcast, right? And they went through the whole series, and at the end the hosts said what their favorite episodes were. And one of the hosts named this one. So I just simply went and bought it off of YouTube. And it's a good deal. You can get it for as little as $1.99 if you want standard definition. And so I simply own it. And I just think that it's very enjoyable. The score is really good. But if you analyze it, it's got some real problems. This one is not as good as I would have. I should have given it a C. I gave it a B plus or whatever.
The fact that you bought it from YouTube, how long do you know you're going to own it?
Is that your review? Are we doing a review?
That's true.
Is that your review for the episode?
That's the grade I'm going to give it, honestly.
That's the grade.
It's leveling down. It could go down more, or it could rally back. Who knows?
Okay, so let's do reviews then. My final thoughts for this episode. Well, I don't knock Nancy for being irritable because she's sick, but to have her entire character be that and how she's never been loved is a little suspicious. But I don't count that against it either. Zephyr's sudden offense at the entity being female somehow comes out of the blue for me, considering their friendship over 150 years. She tosses it aside. how can he blame her for who she is? There's no indication that she's been ingenuine because they don't really tell us exactly what the inside of what their real conversations look like in his mind. It's a really but at the same time it's a very Star Trek thing to bring up prejudice, but I feel like they missed a beat in actually resolving that prejudice. On the other hand, I did love seeing her work as an effective first officer, which was great to see since they pushed her out of command in the last episode. But unfortunately, the only way the plot works out like it does is that the entity can cure Cochrane's aging, but not Nancy's illness. And that could have been solved by one line of dialogue, but the reason's just never given.
I think they don't want to resolve it because their intent is that we kind of understand that the entity sort of actively lets it happen.
Possibly. And Kirk continues saying she can't really love him because they're different. Even if he doesn't believe it, just saying that to get her to do the right thing still feels kind of weird. And she takes that to heart and jumps right into saving Nancy. So in a way, she did save Nancy's life. And they did come together in symbiosis and so we do get the Metamorphosis title that we get. So we get a resolution of that. So Lisa delivers on the title. So it's great that her actions saved Nancy, but in the end, they decide to live on a planet in solitude without worrying about Nancy's family. They would probably like to see her again. So
yeah, she says she gave up like, personal life. She didn't say like, and my parents just like magically disappeared.
right.
She would have some kind of family.
But at the same time, the fact that we care so much about her personal life does show that this episode did have some good writing. Because if we didn't care about Nancy, we wouldn't be talking about her this deeply. So that's how I have mixed feelings on this episode. It is well written. It's just there's some plot holes.
There's a couple of problems with the episode.
Mhm.
It fails to execute on a couple of things. Its themes, like in some ways, people it's left itself open to be calling dated this particular episode.
Yeah, exactly. A little dated is how I feel about it. It's difficult to rate this one because first there's that, and then there's the part of the episode with the scarf reminding me and reminding Cochrane that maybe I'm taking everything a little too seriously, and that of course he still appreciates their 150 years retrospectively. But we don't get that in dialogue. We get it only in that scene without any dialogue at all.
And here's
It's a really
my
beautiful
I'm sorry.
and
Go ahead.
it's a really beautiful and impactful message that came from the silence scene. Without that scarf, I think this episode, I probably would have put it in the D range. But with it, I at first gave it a C+, but at the same time, she did love him so much that she sacrificed being a god to let him finally go free. And in
Well-
that freedom, Cochrane decides to stay with her. So in that effect, that part is sweet. And I do love seeing an alien creature we don't understand coming to some sort of communication. So it was super cool to learn about the universal translator and Zephram Cochrane. So for the richness that this episode provides to the canon of the overall series, I raise it to a B-. And that's how all over the place I am with this episode. But it just made it.
Can I say one thing about the episode that really bothers me?
Sure.
They have a Tuvix sort of issue here. Their mission is to find new life,
no.
and there it is.
What's
You know what I mean?
Tuvix?
Wait a minute. Before
They
you
accidentally
continue,
create new life.
can you put a could you please put a pin in that? I do want to talk about that, but
Okay.
I need a review from Scotty because he's
problem.
got to go.
Yeah, I got to take off. Thank you so much.
Sorry, guys.
Same here, yeah.
I'm giving it a B. I think that it is an episode of Star Trek that is they boldly go where no man has gone before. They do seek out new life. They're trying to protect a new civilization through Vice Commissioner or Assistant Commissioner Hedford. And I find it to be a fascinating love story, not only between an alien that has no real concept of love, but the affection is there, doesn't understand the human concept, And then while there has been some commentary on not saving Commissioner Hedford's life, the companion does. They are joined together in the humanoid body. I think that it's lovely, and once they reconcile, which I think would be difficult for anybody to do, being in a happy relationship with an energy field, only to discover that it is actually infatuated with you, that would be jarring. And then something that would bring it down, for lack of a better term, to earth would be the personification of that relationship and the incorporation of two individuals into one body. I think that it's a lovely episode. The only problem that I do have with it is I guess we'll have to find some other woman to stop that war. It is a little hand wavy and throw away. But aside from that, I think that this is a lovely episode. I give it a B. But thank you again so much. And thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you, Admiral Teague and Pop Culture Curator Jill. Of course, always. It's a pleasure to speak with you. But I do have to take my leave. So thanks again. And everyone in the chat, live long and prosper, yo.
That was such a beautiful review, Scotty. I hope you have a really great day.
Thank you. You too.
Great seeing you, Scotty.
See you later.
Bye.
And don't forget to subscribe to the Phantasmagorium. They're going to talk about Spider-Man 2 tomorrow. And so, Pop Culture Curator, what do you have for this episode?
What's interesting is I hadn't seen this in many years, but my opinion has not changed after rewatching it. I voted before the show started. My vote still stands. I gave it a B-. I would have enjoyed the episode more if they would have fleshed out. I don't like the transition of the ambassador, her body being taken over the way it was without explanation. I'm a big fan of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers movies, and that's highly suspicious that her soul just disappears. I mean, they have to take the entity's word for it that she's in there on the inside, but we have no evidence of that. So I just thought that was kind of cold. But I give it a B+.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That is a very good review and very good points. There are some problems with this episode, but in the end, it has the spirit of Star Trek in it, and it had the good intentions, and everything Scotty said was beautiful. I might clip that. That was
yes, it's still a good
really
episode. That's
eloquent.
why I was still good at a B.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's fair. And Admiral Teague, you had something you wanted to add to your review about the creation of life?
I think maybe we could have saved some of the problems with this episode, or minimized them, or made the Federation look a little less inept if Kirk had been like, and Captain, do me a favor, don't tell him about me. Are you out of your mind? There's going to be a team of scientists here. This is a big fucking deal. We seek out new life. This is it. The ambassador is a very important person. I'll be in jail if I should show up at my ship without her and just tell people not to worry about it. There's going to be an investigation. A guy disappeared in my Jeffries tube during an ion storm, and I almost went to jail for it. We have laws in this Federation in mind. No, that if he would have said something like, and also like Pop said, like the body snatching, he's like if he would have pulled out like his smart device, so to speak, and been like, so ambassador, where'd you go to college? A little verification, some proof of life. And as good as the beginning of the episode is, and as fun as it is to see the team work together, because we tend to just focus on the good, right? Like it's awesome where Bones and Spock and Kirk are working together.
Right. They're all the characters are still the characters. They're still doing what they're supposed to be doing. Lots of things are still really good in this episode. Just
back on the Enterprise, the A team isn't in control. You know what? We're getting A team level decisions because people are qualified, and friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice are what these people are all about. And the stakes are actually, aside from the commissioner, they're a little lower, because once Scotty has a half an idea what's going on, narrows down the area, and he does some good space detective work that we don't get lost in the technobabble. It makes sense. He's like, there'll be a trail of ionized material one way or the other. We'll be able to pick it up. And he finds a way to forensically follow the shuttlecraft that makes sense to us Doesn't need a lot of visual representation. There are no special effects involved in how they explain this to us. We got lovely Nichelle Nichols standing next to him for a long period of time, which I really enjoyed as a fan. Sorry, guys. She looks beautiful in the uniform.
She was gorgeous.
She looks so beautiful. But the thing is, her conversation is on point, scientifically accurate, and also shows the perspective of someone who's, knows what's at stake. And we right away kind of take a little bit of the jeopardy away when we realize that it's just going to turn into not a matter of if, but when Scotty finds them. Like, will he find them in time to save the commissioner? He's got it more or less figured out. He's going to get to, if he has 2 weeks, if they didn't crash and die on the spot, he's going to find him. In
the meantime, they got Cochrane's vegetables.
Cochrane, honestly, they needed to say, look, there are scientists coming here to talk about this. This is a big deal. I can't just blow off the Secretary General of the UN's special assistant disappearing.
I would have appreciated that. I think
that's a flaw.
I think that the episode was so self-contained that it missed the bigger picture. But
I like to say Star Trek needs to be episodic, but this one was too closed of a loop, and they wanted to get rid of these characters in an efficient manner, and the dialogue does, but it seems heartless and then makes them seem kind of flip.
Resolute Germ says Cochrane was just shocked that he had no more excuses not to admit he was in love with the thing.
There's a lot going on here with his level of consent and his perception of the companion and his power level and this perception of his and the companion's gender. There's a lot going on there, and it's not very well hammered out by Cochrane. We don't see him come to terms with it. He's just freaked out, and then he's relieved that this thing has been resolved in a way that kind of works out great for him. Again, it's just like the second or third time he's really lucked out.
Yeah, he has. Phantom Boomer says, Hail, Phantom Boomer.
Hail, Phantom Boomer.
And he's saying hi to everyone.
First, the guys from the Enterprise D show up to help him invent warp technology on time. Then he gets saved by the companion. And then a beautiful woman parachutes onto the planetoid to keep him from dying of loneliness.
Not a bad 200 years of life.
Yeah, he's not going to make it to 300, which is a tragedy. We all mourn for Cochrane, and there's only 240 or so years of life. So the time from George Washington till now, unsuccessful in Highlander terms, but still a good run in Star Trek years, longer than most Vulcans.
Well, okay, so in that sense, he was already getting bored of life, and what was left was he was alone. It kind of gives a hint that he was alone and Nancy was alone, and the entity was alone. So now they can all be together for however long the corporeal bodies live.
He's alone and like a guy who's stranded on a desert island, which is a story that was like very popular, even for over long periods of time. Iterations of this person stuck alone on a desert environment. Robinson Crusoe on Mars from about the same time, all these kind of things. He's alone. He's been alone for a long time. And like, you could continue to question the episode more and say, how many other ships are there on this planet where the people were pulled from the sky to be friends with Cochrane?
Right, and I think that's the problem here, is that we have all of these questions because we're Star Trek fans, but at the end of the day, this was a romance episode.
And also, there are in production order, if we look at it, there's a really big OG episode that everybody loves coming up called The Doomsday Machine that's going to probably suck up a lot of cash and resources. I haven't looked into that budget, but that one's there's some big episodes this season. They needed an episode that didn't cost a lot of money, and some dialogue was just too trite sometimes.
And this episode saved a bunch of budget because I think they used the set from The Cage. Actually,
absolutely saving money on this
Pop Culture, did you have anything from Inside Star Trek from this episode? We seem to have some time.
Not specifically this episode.
No? Okay, just checking. Just in case, if you had anything.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, that's all right.
No, it's just that I got a doctor. I have a doctor's appointment in about 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah. You should probably go to take care of that. Yeah, I don't want you to be late.
Yeah, I've been kind of ill lately, so I do apologize.
Wow, you did a really great job You did a fantastic job today, considering I didn't even know. Just like Nancy, just like her actor, you stuck through it, and you came to my show anyway. Thank you so much.
Our best
Well,
wishes.
I don't usually try to be a party pooper or share illnesses because that's
No, I
just not
know. Right.
necessary. Pity
I
party. I
know.
don't like pity parties.
You know what
Well,
though? Our
well, you
best
showed up,
wishes.
and thank you so much for showing up.
Our
For
best
even
wishes
though
It's
you
go
my
with
weren't there.
pleasure. It's my pleasure as always. No matter what happens, I'll always make time for these.
Mhm.
Your duty to, your sense of duty to the Federation has been truly noted, pop culture.
Yeah, and I tried to make the appointment later, but I scheduled it
Mhm.
almost a month ago, unfortunately.
Makes sense.
But I wanted to say thank you, everybody in the chat. It was so good to see you all,
Yes.
and especially you guys on the panel. And once again, thank you for having me here, Jill.
You're welcome, and thank you for being here. I hope you get well soon, and everybody in the chat. I think some people in the chat are saying to get that Tony is praying for you. And
Thank you. I've got the appointment today,
Mhm.
and then I had a little incident this weekend, so I've got kind of an emergency physical tomorrow. But I'm going to still try to make the streams if I can.
Okay,
But
yeah, I hope you can
Well, by all means,
feel
good
better.
luck. You know that we all love you, you crazy old
Yeah.
madman.
Yeah, and if you need to take breaks to feel better, that's important too. Remember, you're more important than any live stream, so just keep that in mind.
well, I do my best, and I try to not break promises.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
thank you all, and I appreciate it.
that is
And
admirable too.
I will definitely be here next week,
Oh yes,
unless I'm
Friday's
dead.
child.
But that's
No,
unlikely.
no, don't say
Ooh.
that.
Just kidding.
Would do we have permission to make an AI of you that we just put into a robot body and let run around? Would that be okay?
As long as it's smarter than ChatGPT. There's a lot of people using that thing, and it's immensely stupid.
It depends
well,
to be it tends to be quite woke, the robot bodies, actually. I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
I was somehow banned from using it. I don't know what happened. I was just talking to it about Star Trek.
I asked it what
All
would
you have to
happen
do
if-
is type in. All you have to do is type in things that you know the absolute facts of, and you
Mhm.
will find out how inaccurate it is.
Yeah,
There's a lot of things
Yeah.
it does not know, or it'll guess and give you the wrong
Right.
answers.
Yeah.
It gave me a really good answer to what if Starfleet were an evil matriarchy. It gave
I
me a
don't know
very
if
well
it can
thought out
answer
answer.
questions like that
Okay.
or not.
Yeah,
That's,
right.
that's more like an opinion. I don't think it's going to be able to answer questions like that.
No, I get back. All I'm going to say is it backed it up with reasons from the show why it wouldn't make
Thank
sense.
you,
It
at your
would
time.
It said it would drive away fans.
Okay.
It gave the opinion that it would no longer be Star Trek.
Hello, Captain. All right. I will talk to you guys soon. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Jill.
Yeah, report
once
to
again.
sick bay and see Dr. McCoy.
Yeah. All right. See you guys later. Bye bye.
Well, everybody, put a PCC in the chat, for our guy. He's good, and best wishes to him. Phantom Boomer and anti-derivative Scotty, pop culture curator,
yes.
and Admiral Teague. Put a PCC in the chat, guys, for our buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. I
You
hope you
can
feel
go
better
ahead and do
soon, pop
that.
culture curator. And
He's
thank
a
you
great Star
so
Trek
much for
commentator.
being for showing up and being here, even though you're not feeling well. You're always the most important thing outside of YouTube. So make sure to take care of yourself.
All right. So subscribe to Scotty R37 and Friends and the Phantasmagorium Show.
Yeah. And
okay, Edge of Time says, these are the people in the Trek neighborhood, in the Trekkie hood. Yes. Okay, I recognize the song. I don't want to sing it, even though I think it is publicly owned. It's the Sesame Street song. And yeah, what can you tell us? What can we say? These are the people in the Trek neighborhood. Sometimes we get emotional vampire clouds who are hard to assess and hard to square up.
Oh, and hello to Disney Sheepherder.
Hell, he's a great sub. He's a great YouTube follower and has been on my show a couple of times, opinionating on Star Trek. He has a great insight into TOS and TNG.
Yes, I've seen him there before too. He's at work, but he licked the like. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have to. I know you're the only one here, but I have to step away for just a minute. So can you read the chat for me for just 2 minutes? I'll be right back.
Sure, take your time. I'm going to try to locate that comment from Mark, but I'll read it first. Mark Harkness, Mark Leonard's credit as the Romulan commander is listed on IMDb, but his work as Sarek isn't listed until yesteryear. Is that a TNG show? I'm going to say I see a lot of strange things in the appellations on IMDb. Some of them can be outright weird, and I don't know what their logic is to how they assign what they think your appearances in the show. Maybe they stick with your first time and they don't update it. It's hard to say. So very, very pertinent question there. And let's see. A lot of people expressing their feelings for Pop, and of course, got to agree. Let's see if I can find some other chats here. This counts as cosmic horror and is comparable to Lovecraft's The Shadow over Innsmouth, says Edge of Time. Interesting. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just scrolling through my version of the chat. Here we go. Trying to find Mark's comments so I can read ahead more or less in order. Forgive me. Let's see. Glenn Corbett passed away at the young age of 60. That's, I guess, the Cochrane one. I guess that's why he's not in any other stuff. There was just no way to do it, even if they had wanted to. I think I hear someone returning. Hey,
yes, I'm here.
Back.
Hello. What chat did you leave on?
I read just the one on screen, but we have a nice, brisk discussions and stuff going in chat and some well wishes to Pop. So I wasn't able to locate where we were. Yeah,
that's all right. No problem.
He's going to be okay. We're going to inject him full of nanites, which will repair any problems inside of him.
Oh, do you think he wants to have nanites? Oh, I guess we'll have to ask him next time we see him.
They would be very tiny exocomps.
Okay. And then they'll be expelled.
We'll beam them out later after they do whatever they have to do.
Okay. That sounds a lot better.
Yes.
I do like the imaginative nature that you have with Star Trek. That's fun.
Well, we do kind of have like a bunch of little microprocessors that kind of start to operate in a group consciousness in TNG.
Mm-hmm.
And they start, aren't they living in the warp core or something when the scientist whose work they're stymieing just turns around and phases the warp core trying to kill them all? And the ugly bags of mostly water episode. I don't remember.
Right. Was that a Wesley experiment?
I'm not sure what he did. Maybe he took them home from school and let them out of their environment, and then they interacted with some of the data that this nutty professor they had brought with them. I'm not sure how they we would have to research that episode and remember its name even to have a clue on that one. But
okay, soil, something soil, home soil.
Home soil is a different episode.
No?
Home soil is the one where they go to a planet and they ruin everyone's lives who's working there. There's people who've been on the planet on home soil for about 20 years, starting to do they're terraformers. They're making a habitable planet so people can live on it.
You're right.
Lifeless planet, and it's going to take them like a half century to do what the Genesis device could do in just 6 or 7 minutes. But this is what they're doing, and they have a lot of equipment set up down there. And when the Enterprise shows up, they really just want it out of there. And Picard and his crew go down there and find out that the sand glows and does some strange translucent stuff. The one with the escaped nanites is a different episode where they're in the computer core and the warp core just like multiplying, and they try to take a hostile takeover of the ship.
Right. That one is Wesley's experiment.
Yes. And the first time we get baseball in Star Trek because the scientist relaxes by thinking about baseball.
But I think Home Soil is the episode with the ugly bags of mostly water. So I think those are separate episodes.
Right. Okay. The nanites do not call them ugly bags of mostly water, but they do the other things we said.
Yes, that's right.
There's a lot of Next Generation episodes that kind of play with the idea of what happens if simpler creatures combine into like a flock and have group consciousness.
Mhm. Yeah,
That
that's
being
another
one of them.
point. There is just one of this type of entity on this planet. What happened to the rest of her people? We don't know.
That's why I'm saying like they contravene their actual mission. Like, yeah, love's a beautiful thing, but you know what, Cochran, you're 210 years old. People are gonna love this story. Like, I'm selling. Someone on the crew would have sold it to the National Enquirer in today's world. It was like Duffer and Cochran found alive. It's like us waking up tomorrow, turning on the TV, and it's like Ulysses S. Grant at Yankee Stadium.
Definitely. It definitely would have gotten out somehow.
Abraham Lincoln arrested hunting vampires in Central Park.
Right. If anything, the information will be on the tricorder somehow. And somebody's just gonna run across the tricorder and say, "Hey, what's going on here? Is that from Cochrane?"
The tricorders were inside the energy dampening field and only work by magic. So
Oh,
outside the
right.
energy dampening field, I suppose they wouldn't work because we're back in another. I don't know. There's a lot to say about how this episode, and you know what? We didn't used to think about Star Trek this way. And this is what I talk about of the mental damage of watching non-canonical Star Trek, things that happen after the Nexus, because everything that happens after Captain Kirk and then later Captain Picard enter the Nexus has simply been a dream. None of it happened. We're still in the Nexus.
Well, yeah, that is a theory. That is a fan theory.
You know what? Here's my theory. They don't say it's not in the Nexus.
It's also part of the theory. Resolute Germ says Nancy is done with the body, so no need for her to be a third wheel. Wow, that's harsh. That's harsh. Resolute Germ.
It's kind of like it really is just there's a term and a trope in writing called fridged, when you create a character just to kill them off. And we saw that on a certain Cowardly Bald Space Robot show where we only got to know one member of a ship's crew and they were deleted. And that's called being fridged, when they give you just enough familiarity so that when the person gets like, "Hey, Comic Relief Crusader," shout out to
well,
you.
that actually happened on a lot of the filth. I could think of another one.
Listen, fridging people is nothing new. They did it on Westerns all the time. So it was not that. This is not messed up for the TV standards of its time. But does this episode present problems that spider crack out if we allow ourselves to focus on them? We could spend a lot of time talking about how this episode like needs a couple of lines of dialogue to shore up things that
I think we did a pretty good job covering it.
We did a great job covering it. We had an amazing panel with Scotty and Pop, and I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of this. This is my favorite Star Trek discussion panel.
You're welcome.
I guess me and Doomcock have that in common, but maybe GMTA on that one. I really always enjoyed this, and you were the first person to let me come on the air. So the circle is now complete.
Hooray!
It's really great to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming on and providing your insight. Mark Harkness says, someone once said they hoped either Cochrane gets it together and mellows out, or Hedford completely takes over the merged personality and nags Cochrane to death.
We only know what she's like when she's really sick. She's probably a really good conversationalist, a cool person, and okay, because remember, she's qualified enough to end a war.
Right.
Like, they try to get it right. Like, she has a very high rank. She's very important. She could pull rank on Kirk under certain situations. Pop gave us the parameters. In certain situations, she would outrank Kirk, but, he's definitely in command in this episode. And she's done quite well for herself in the hierarchy of the Federation, apparently on merit alone. And, she has a right to be frustrated and angry, as she expresses, I don't want to die on this stupid rock. I have a whole life ahead of me. And like, she didn't kick the can that hard. She's not quite 30. So she's not, like you said, she's overly regretful, but she's just found out she's not going to make it.
Yes, that's one of the attributes that doesn't bother me about this episode is her attitude, because she is so sick. We're probably just seeing a really exaggerated version of her true nature.
Gene Roddenberry was born 102 years ago and may have had what we now think of as a different attitude towards women, or this episode was just trying to get to the end of the episode and write her off quickly without any. What maybe
I don't.
they
I
didn't
don't
want
think
any loose
so.
ends. I don't know.
I don't think that's. I don't think that's a thing that
I'm confused.
Gene
by
Roddenberry
why
has a very positive view of humanity.
he does, but every once in a while he just shows that he was a man of his time here and there.
Hmm.
He was. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's still predicting things that are coming to be now. And they're going to be saying Gene Roddenberry was right for the next 100 years.
Right.
And this episode of Star Trek will live forever as one of the greatest stories ever told. And in 100 years, you're going to say to people, do you know Star Trek, the original series with Captain Kirk? And people are going to say, with William Shatner, of course. And they're not going to say that about certain other shows that have this moniker on them. Is there a problem with this episode? There is. There's a couple of problems.
There are a few.
We would
there
very
are a few
much.
problems.
Don't you think the most the one we could have had solved the easiest would be Kirk would be like, I'm sorry, but we've got new life right here. I have a Federation commissioner gone missing to explain, and there's a war on this planet that I have to now find people to mitigate. We've set back the cause of peace. Love and Alaric are a nice thing, but I'm a military commander as well as an explorer. And both of these are coming right to the front here. And from a military standpoint, I need to help these people on the planet because it's not compassionate to let the war go on. And from an explorer standpoint, we have new life right here. I can't just hand wave this away.
And that's right. That does make sense from Kirk's perspective, but that's why we needed McCoy to balance it out, like Pop Culture was saying, with, hey, let's save Nancy's life too, and
I don't understand how having them have privacy does it. I mean, it's just a flaw. They wanted to close the door on the episode, and they did it maybe a little too fast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
But I do want to read some of the chat.
Go right ahead. Sorry.
Stream Elements wants to remind. No, don't be sorry. All of that was great.
Stream Elements, I hate you, by the way.
Subscribe to Gorilla's Random Thoughts. And okay, yeah, I know. Sometimes Stream Elements doesn't work right, but today it's working for me.
Against Admiral Teague.
Resolute Germ says the war was on a planet of giant Amazon women.
We don't know that it's not on a planet of giant Amazon.
That's what I was thinking, because they could always send another woman. That tells me that for some reason a woman was best for this job. So I was thinking it's probably a matriarchal society, but we never find out.
That's very possible. It could have been on Angel One, right? A planet like Angel One.
Exactly. Resolute Germ says they needed a woman to distract while Spock fixes the femputer.
The femputer. Are they talking about the universal translator, where it's just like, yeah, that whole part is weird. It's like, this device just simply establishes things in this way, and they're like, oh, okay. And Cochrane's like, whoa,
Yeah, Cochrane definitely nerds out about the universal translator. I love that part.
Yeah. A lot of things happen very quickly. Most of them make sense. See, like my rule for Star Trek, and I think maybe you'll agree with me, Jill, it should be a 1-hour television show good enough for regular TV that mostly makes sense.
It does mostly make sense.
There's some of it's not going to make sense sometimes. I'm okay with that.
And that's why I that's why I put it in the B range.
I think I'm going to stick with B. Now that we've gotten to the end of the episode, there's some problematic dialogue. We already wrote what we thought the fix would be. They should talk about, people need to know about this because it's just too important scientifically. And like on another level, like the power scale of the entity is unknown. Like, ships might need to know. Like this, what happens if something happens to Cochrane and this thing returns to its other form? Or if there's more of them, no one wants to know if there's more. These things are too powerful not to know about. But I love space. Creatures that just sort of live in space. This thing seems to live in space, but is based on the planetoid.
Yeah. Right. And it could survive in space and
it's a little like Tin Man.
Like, how long has it been on this planet? Is this even its planet of origin? We don't know anything about it. The fact that we even care means this is a good episode.
It is a good episode, and it's a good story. And it's also, let's not remember, this story is 56, 55 years old. And some of these things have been proven out, like some of this technology, like we said, the universal translator. We're going to be there in another 5 to 8 years, where it's just going to there'll be a handheld way to real time translate to the other person. We're almost there. You can do it in text.
and other things. I don't know how long it'll be before we find the emotional vampire clouds, though.
So Franco Walker asks, how do they explain where Nancy has gone? They
Exactly. We've
they
questioned
have
that.
to. They have to. They have to
Yeah.
explain that. They
She's too
can't keep
important.
Zephyr Cochran a secret.
You
I
know
mean, I
what
guess
was-
they could, but
It
no,
was.
they have
It
to
would have.
explain it.
It would have been so much better if the Enterprise itself had gone to the planet and they went down there and they had the capacity to do a little more and then made these decisions more openly. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
I love that we see the shuttlecraft. I love the charming scenes of them trying to fix it, but I don't know. Like, yeah, this story was like they had the when we see this season, there's going to be some of the greatest Star Trek of all time. And while this story isn't their best, it's far from the worst Star Trek story. And
Absolutely.
they
Agreed.
needed to save some money. We're seeing, I mean, 22 episodes every season with endings. Now we get
Mhm.
10 episodes with one ending. So they didn't stick the landing on the actual ending and they wonked some dialogue. That's the only
Yeah,
problem.
and you know what? That's the great thing about episodic television. You're not hinging upon one story to be good. You've got 24 really, really varying stories of varying degrees of quality, and if one is bad, it doesn't ruin all the rest.
What I would say is one of the best things about this episode is that next week we're somewhere totally different and we never talk about this again because it's got problems.
Mhm.
Better episodes get called back to. We talk about the events of other encounters with the Klingons when we see the Klingons again.
Right, exactly. And
This, like V'ger, just goes away because it's too much of a problem. We see this happen again
V'ger.
where we create
Resolute Germ
overpowered entities. Sorry.
Resolute Germ says, no question. Kirk will fix the war and Starfleet will forget about the whole thing. Oh, well, he did say a woman's going to fix it, so maybe her.
Well, he could always go after the events of Turnabout Intruder personally and fix it because at that point he has what it takes to be a woman.
But you're right. This show really does love its godlike entities. Franco Walker says, I'm playing catch up. My internet went down. Oh,
Well,
no.
we're glad that it was important to you to come back to us. And when you got your hailing frequency reestablished, you made contact because, you know, we can't beam you up if you don't.
Now that they fused Nancy, the companion should be able to travel, but it says that it can't. It says that if it gets away from the planet in this form, it's going to die.
Yeah,
but how does it know that?
I would have appreciated McCoy pulling out some instrumentations and being like, yeah, the metabolism's all messed up, but the dampening field that was messing up my tricorder is gone. That would have fixed a lot.
That would have been fantastic. I would have loved that. That would have been really cool.
Admiral Teague also suggests fixes. I never criticize an episode or of any kind of show when I review it without suggesting something that could have been better, or at least saying I'm stumped as to how they could have done it, and at least giving them that much credit.
Right, and this episode is good enough to where reasonable explanations are possible.
Yeah, it's not total headcanon if it's an in-universe explanation that holds up.
It's still headcanon, but it's
what
good.
I'm saying is,
it's good to think about.
It's if you have logical headcanon, or if you
plausible.
have insane headcanon.
It's plausible. It's possible. It could be.
Let me put it this way: they didn't say it didn't happen is terrible headcanon. If you flesh it out and make it kind of loving and respectful, you might get a headcanon that's not offensive to the world. Where if you say it to another Star Trek fan, they're gonna be like, "Yeah," but that's all it's worth.
Right. And
but
Canadian
that's
Spider-Man
why we're here.
says,
we were Star Trek fans.
Why can't she
Sorry,
travel
go ahead.
now? Well, because she says she can't, and we're just believing her.
We take a lot of things at face value. If you want to call this episode's James T. Kirk like ridiculously naive, you're allowed to. He's a little
he was.
He's out of character, and he's at odds with the guy who really most of the time Jim Kirk is about rules, man. That's why I like Captain Kirk. You know what? Captain Jellicoe is a humorless Kirk. Kirk is glib, he has a good humor, and his people enjoy following him more than it's implied people enjoy following Jellicoe. But the command philosophy is precisely the same.
Mm-hmm. Cavatino Cavalryman says, just realize the cage. This is the cage, except for minor changes and a gender swap. And not only that, it also uses the set from the cage. So that's fun.
We believe in recycling in Star Trek. They had a green agenda as far as their scripts.
Kronos is giving this a Z- just to annoy.
Go for it.
That's
You know
too
what?
harsh. But okay.
Hey, Kronos.
Hey, Cronus. Resolute Germ says HBO wasn't interested until it was an exclusive deal.
Unless, what are they talking about? The new Trek?
Ah, Kronos, why is Jill not Jill yet? I made April Fool's mistakes, but it was a positive mistake because then I got to talk about Spartacus, and I did.
Was the deal that if you change your handle, you can't change it back for a month?
15 days or 14 days.
See, now I have to be saving Star Trek forever then, because I can't risk that. I know that Paramount is covetously like pissed off about that.
You
They
can
are
change it
absolutely-
once. You can
But
change
the
it
thing
once.
is, if someone else claims it while it's not mine,
Mhm.
I don't want to risk, saving Star Trek. It's too
You can
much.
change
It's
it
important.
once, and then you can change it back.
I
Oh,
don't
but
know
it
if you're
doesn't.
protected while you don't have that name. You know what I mean?
You still have the same link. Your link stays the same. My link is still antiderivative Jill.
True.
That hasn't changed. The only thing that
Right.
changes is the actual label. So
How did-
you'll be okay, I think.
How did you enjoy Spartacus?
I did. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was absolutely fabulous movie about, well, it doesn't really have exactly a happy ending, but the victory is in the fighting against oppression, and I really enjoyed that message.
Did you know that in Gaelic, Teague means singer of songs?
No.
I believe, isn't that one of the lines in Spartacus, right? And what do? I'm a singer of songs. Right? Isn't that
Right.
Tony Curtis's introduction?
Yeah, but nobody tells me why this person doesn't actually sing in the movie. I don't know.
It would have been great if he had sung about their rebellion, maybe. That could have worked. You know what? I
Mhm.
don't think Kubrick was a very musical director in that sense. His music is very
All right.
important, but not a lot of in-world
It
music.
felt like he said this poem and he was like, "Oh, we'll get someone to sing it later," and later never came.
Well, when it was time to step up and commit the very first identity thefts for a good reason, he was Spartacus.
Mhm. But I did love the movie. It was really good.
It was a great movie. Maybe you're gonna watch Paths of Glory next. You're gonna watch more Kubrick movies, because I would love to. If you do it, I have like almost expert level on The Shining and Full Metal Jacket.
Well, I'm a sci-fi channel, so I might go for 2001, even though I've seen it a million times. And then maybe I'll look at some other Kubrick.
It's a great movie. Did you know that 2001: A Space Odyssey, technically with an asterisk, has the first CGI?
I didn't know that. Is that true?
Because they have word processors which existed at the time, and the word processors are showing text. That's considered CGI asterisk. It's not created CGI. We're seeing the readout of right. You know what I'm saying?
It did not involve
text.
CGI. Right. Okay.
Well, it was computer. It was a computer generated image in the sense that a computer readout terminal spelled out the words they were reading. And maybe their telemetry when we see that on another instrument panel. That's all it is, though.
Resolute Germ says Cochrane and the companion worked it out in the bedroom later.
That's what's implied. That is what's implied, that there's a physical component missing from his life, and then if he can just get down to it, he's going to be able to survive happily.
Yeah, it's the same thing as Cat's Paw. They both of these entities, both of these aliens want to discover human sensations.
We see this throughout Star Trek, real Star Trek at least, is that there is a connection between your soul and your body, that if it's broken, your soul might go on, but it's not going to be the same, and it's going to change in a way almost always for the worse when you're removed from your body. And in this episode, we do the opposite. This thing has no body, and when it does have a body, when it's corporeal, is that the correct word? It starts to behave a little differently. And it's if it controlled the dampening field, it makes it go away. It's willing to release them.
Hey, Tony has a great point here. He loves the Futurama episode that jokes around making the companion a fanfic writer for the original series cast. That was a really great episode, but it actually merges, I guess, this episode and also Trelane, because the entity also turns out to be just a kid.
I have not seen that Futurama.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I hate to admit it.
You have to see that one. It's so good.
Tell me the title and I will absolutely just watch it. I love I've never seen an episode of Futurama I didn't enjoy.
Oh, yeah. What is the name of that episode? Where no fan has gone before.
I'm writing this one down. So I mean, this episode that we just watched, I think I gave it a B to B plus. I think I'm going to keep it there, but it's the thing is, it's not an A plus story because they don't nail those lines that we said about keeping their world a little more consistent. Like Captain Kirk absolutely should be like, look, our job is to seek out new life, and you're it. In fact, we've just seen you become two different kinds of new life in front of us. We can't. It's immoral. We can't break our oath.
Right. And yeah, so definitely Starfleet should be notified of everything that's happened. It's just common sense, but this is a romance episode, so they forget about that.
And they also much like we see with other times where they make an all-powerful creature, they get rid of it. They don't want to talk about it anymore because it would present problems to look back on this. It's like,
right, exactly.
Like V'ger, by implication, is the biggest mass murderer of all time, and they're like, it's a child.
Right, and you got to spank the child or something. But also the Organians, they can stop war all the time, everywhere, and we definitely need to.
We note that they're a thing that exists a few times, but we don't go back there and deal with them. Although we do see every single one of those actors again at some point.
And Agrella says he gives it an F after analyzing it. And Kronos says, "Rest in peace, Futurama." But I did hear that it's coming back, right?
It's back, and it's back. Listen, sometimes things should just come to an end. PDB has said that he doesn't favor bringing it back, but it's everybody who wrote it and everybody who was part of the voice cast, so it's a continuation. So I think
we got Bender. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. Bender.
I have as a fellow Latino, I wasn't going to watch without Bender because I don't see myself in Futurama without Bender.
Well. Hopefully, also the original writers will be coming back. The creators.
No, they are. It's David X. Cohen, I believe.
Okay, great.
The thing that I found, the one thing that I did find to be logical was the guy who played Bender does like one voice, and Billy West does like 25 voices, and he wanted pay parity with Billy West, and I'm like, I think Billy West definitely works harder. Like you deserve to be well paid, Bender, but Billy West works really. He does a lot of voices.
Right, but Dalek 451 says. Seriously, who cares about Tuvix? Janeway was right.
I've asked for Scogli to cut me a piece of video where Tuvix stands up and yells, "Doesn't anyone see that this is wrong?" So that instead of muting people, I can just play that to like calm people down when they start getting too tangential on saving Star Trek.
Yeah.
Tuvix, what can you say? That's when we found out the ceiling for Voyager intellectually. They reached a little too high. Tuvix was a huge mistake. Their technology was not equal to ours, and they weren't as good of a show as the Next Generation.
Well,
that said, it's still real Star Trek.
It's a theme of Voyager.
Tuvix is from Voyager.
No, I know, but the theme from Voyager is that a lot of the science is a little bit off, and Tuvix episode is a big exposition of that.
But here's, can we talk about Tuvix for 1 minute? Or my Tuvix thing is this. I have a problem, and this is one of my bullet points of when I don't like a certain other Star Trek creators' efforts. When their technology is not as good as ours or is magical bullshit, I really don't like it. So like in this case with Tuvix, right?
Yeah.
They don't store his transporter pattern, which is their technology is better than ours, but they also don't take a DNA sample to clone him later so that they can have another Tuvix. Like, okay, maybe the individual Tuvix had to be merged back into the other two people because of the needs of the many concept, but that doesn't mean you couldn't take a culture and clone him. Don't destroy his species. You created new life. According to their charter, they didn't have an out. So what happened was we found out that
I don't want a clone of Tuvix.
They called him Tuvix because it was
we needed to. The only reason, we needed Tuvok back. So that's
the only reason
why Tuvix had to go.
it was a third actor. They could have kept both with the transport. You know, they could have been like, we found a way to beam him off and have 3 beam back. We just need to throw carbon matter onto the transporter pad, and it'll be imbued with the life of Tuvix and reorganized into his new pattern. I mean, I don't know. They could have kept it, but I don't know. Tuvix was that episode showed like, and I think it's based off the Tom Riker episode. We have the transporter kind of making and creating and randomizing life, which is a thing we see a few times in Star Trek. But with that one, we find out Janeway is no Kirk.
Yeah.
and
Oh,
the people
but
on
I do want to
Voyager
get through.
just
I do appreciate this discussion, but I do want to get through the chat. And Richie Pool's got an A+. Franco Walker's got a B-. And okay. And we also do want to remember to subscribe to Mark D with the C. And Cronus
Love
says
Mark
it
D
wasn't
with
a
a C.
horrible episode.
It's not horrible. It's just
And
a
so
little bit
yeah,
of a
I do
problem.
have to leave in a few minutes. So I do want to get through as much chat as I can. Did Jill Spartacus look at the chat? I did just now. Is this review over? Yeah, pretty much. It is. Resolute Germ says no one would ever care about the missing ambassador after Kirk single-handedly ends the war by seducing some princess. And that's what it is. That's exactly what happens. Canadian Spider-Man says, good to see you, bud. And everybody's saying hi, never better to see you around. But Scotty didn't use a space sonar. I guess Scotty just knows how stupid that is.
This episode wasn't dumb or
Right.
anything like that.
No,
It's
I didn't
just,
think that. I didn't
there
think
was
so
some
either.
things that were not that precise.
Yeah.
And a couple of
But we
quick
did cover them.
shortcuts that were made with their Star Trek. Yeah, we covered them.
Dalek 451 says differences. Vulcans are not immortal, thus just have much longer lifespans than humans.
Right.
Also, it's an F-15 Tomcat Formula 500 race car, Macy's toaster, a Walmart toaster, and a Walmart. Don't assume my gender. What? I don't know what that means.
I think he might be talking about when like the universal translator gives the gender of the companion and freaks out Cochrane.
Oh, okay. This counts as cosmic horror and is comparable to Lovecraft, The Shadow over Innsmouth. And so pop culture had to
bit
go
of a horror
because he was
story from
feeling
the point
sick.
of view of the of the ambassador. Kirk's okay with it at the end. That's one of the things we thought was weird.
Yeah. I don't know how I got banned from the chat GPT, but it's like I can't talk to you anymore. And I just don't know why. Okay, so Herc130 says, I have finally settled down and can chat. What the? Show over. Yeah, the show's over pretty much. We're just reading the chat real quick and I gotta go. So Captain Infinity says, I'm just waking up. Jessica liked the flowers. Phew. Oh, what a relief. That is great. So Krona says, I have holy water and a few steaks. Steaks. Oh, I'm so glad you're going to have some steaks today. Well, exocomps. Exocomps, those are my favorite. I love
The exocomps are great.
Mark Harkness says Ant E time travels, encounters refit Enterprise. While puzzling that, the ships engaged in mock combat. Classic E won because Troy won't let Picard raise shields without getting in touch with his feelings. Oh my god, that's funny. Okay. Bags of mostly water. Yeah.
I'm sorry I got that one mixed up. It is two confrontations with collective life forms.
It's
And
true.
they are both collectives, but they're benevolent, or at least non-malevolent. Because
Stark of
Borg is
Iron
another
says, great show. It makes for a great pre-workout radio. And the
Great.
only weekday show I can catch live. It was the first episode of season 3. It's called Evolution, says Dalek 451. Oh, for the other episode with the yes. So welcome to the Evolution. Okay, the Wesley experiment episode. And Edge of Time says someone characterized Space 1999 and Space Horror, which was relevant to my interest. Paused watching it and began UFO. I'm on episode 12 trying to catch Shore Leave. Cool.
UFO is a better show than Space 1999 ever made it to be. But Space 1999 is not bad.
Mm-hmm. And J.J. Abrams, hello, Jill, Admiral Kronos. This is Gap. I changed my name twice to prank Mexican Iron Man, and I'm stuck with it for 14 days. Oh my gosh. Did you do it because of April Fool's Day too? Because that's exactly why I have Spartacus. And you make me feel a lot better for having anti-derivative Spartacus. Because at least I'm not JJ.
In my case, I was thinking about I was originally Captain Teague, and I realized that Disney owns that because that's Keith Richards in Pirates. So I had to change it, and I super chatted Doomcock. I was like, "Do you think it would be okay if I called myself Admiral?" And he was like, "He didn't make me an admiral." His response was, "Yeah, why not?
Mhm.
Why not?" So I did it to get away from the copyright, and saving Star Trek was just made more sense
There you go.
as a tag.
Richie Poole says Nancy survived the metamorphosis. She was not destroyed. Right. She was merged.
Well,
Her life was saved and she was merged, but we don't know if she's still in there. So we really don't know if she will talk to us and if she can really have any kind of.
They don't give her a Voight-Kampf test,
Right.
so to speak.
Exactly.
We don't know what the hell is going on. She says all the right things, but it's exactly what a body snatcher would say. And Kirk doesn't do things that we could do now, although they could not do them then.
Snotty rocks. Yeah, I wonder how he had to leave.
Sorry.
No, I know, but I didn't know why Scotty
We
left.
apologize, but hey, you get Admiral Teague.
Yeah, I know, right? Thank you for hanging out.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Like I said, this is one of my very favorite shows on all of YouTube. You are my very favorite host on all of YouTube.
Thank you.
You're up there on the Mount Rushmore of the greats, carved right next to Doomcock.
Oh my goodness.
I'm honored to be here. Clobbering
I'm not
Times
even
would
close,
be on that
but
Mount Everest.
thank you.
It's my Mount Everest. I'll put on it who I want.
Okay. Edge of Time says it's an incredible Trek LARP. So yes, they have ranks. And Kronos asks the everlasting question, what is a woman?
Yeah, you know what? The universal translator just thinks it's an immutable thing. It's like, this is it. It's a constant. And Spock looks at them like they're crazy when they question it. So that's this episode's outlook.
Richie Poole says there are plenty of people, men and women, that are driven by their professional life to the detriment of their personal life. That's true.
That is true. And it was showing her, like
Wow,
the episode's trying to get
there's
it
a
right.
chat.
She's important.
She is important.
She has a good job. She's saving lives. She has gone really far in the Federation at apparently a pretty young age, unless she's a human-looking alien.
Canadian Spider-Man says, I'll check my DMs today. All right, great. So you're back to Canadian so you're back in Canada, Canadian Spider-Man? That's a good question. I don't know. I thought he was still in Mexico, but I don't know for sure. Did he say? Canadian Spider-Man says, thanks for being here, everyone. Good show. And team. Yes.
Thank you.
Great team.
We did it just for you guys, our fans in the chat. You people are the best. Incomparable. We get some great insights from this. And you know what? It's nice to be on the microphone side, because if not, I would just be furiously typing away one comment after another, as you know.
That's true. I do like it when you're in the chat too.
You know what? Sometimes I cannot manifest myself physically, but my spirit loses none of its potency, as they said about Sauron in Fellowship of the Ring.
Nice. Captain Infinity says, Kubrick, Scotty and I are talking about The Shining on my channel this coming Monday. Oh, sweet. You guys have a scheduled chat. That'll be great.
Yeah, I can't believe I had that brain fart about Mark Leonard, but it's been a really long time since I've seen Spartacus. I probably need to watch it again.
Kronos says Gaelic.
Yes, that's right. Look, Teague is a Gaelic name. And Gaelic that like button and follow button if you're out there.
Franco Walker says, I love Futurama. I got the DVD box set. Me too. But I don't have the DVD box set.
I love Futurama. And my favorite is the aliens from Omicron Perseid 8. They're the best.
They are awesome for sure. They're great recurring characters. Dalek451 says the first 5 seasons of Futurama were good. Everything else sucked. Well, I wouldn't exactly say that. There was a point where it started to suck, and then it gets better again for a little while.
It unjumps the shark is what we would say.
Yes.
But yeah, there's a couple of seasons there where it was kind of a little bit.
Okay, so the breaking news from Canadian Spider-Man is that, okay, that's my alarm that says I gotta go soon. Canadian Spider-Man says, just got back late last night. Now it's time to look for work and save money so I can go back next year. Oh, yes. Good luck on that. I hope you can go back next year.
Good luck.
You've become a winter Mexican.
These
Couldn't
are
get into Spider-Man.
we call them snowbirds here in New York.
Snowbirds, yeah.
Yeah, they're
Captain
people who
Finity
live in the north during the summer.
Captain Finity says, I think they chose to ignore PDB.
My co-host,
Huh?
the science officer of Saving Star Trek, PDB.
I didn't see PDB.
I didn't see him either. If PDB was here, hey buddy, sorry, but you can catch him Friday with me.
At PDB, if you've been here, I didn't see you in the chat. Bender is although I did see your channel name. I didn't. I have my Stream Elements bot go through the channel names.
Stream Elements, it helps us and it hangs us, right? But since his name came up, I'm gonna drop his link in the chat. PDB is a great.
His name
YouTuber.
is in the chat. I think that's what it.
Oh, I'm saying I'm putting his link to his channel.
Yeah, I know the link is in the chat. That's what happened.
Now we got it twice as much, ladies and gentlemen. I guess maybe he was here. I'm sorry, PDB, if I missed you. We saw Scogli. It was great to see him. Everyone from Saving Star Trek came through. Except, well, Dark Helmet didn't make it, but you know what? People have to work.
Right, people do have to work. But I can't find it. Okay, so thank you for posting it in again.
Thank you for telling us.
I see it here in the YouTube chat, but I don't see it on the StreamYard side.
Listen, if you guys do want to check out PDB, he doesn't upload frequently, but when he does, it's high quality. He's a really intelligent guy, and he's the science officer of my channel, Saving Star Trek, and helps me do the analysis of the Picard show. And I don't know, Antiderivative Jill, do you like his?
He's a highly qualified science officer. Not only that, he could be a great science consultant on a real Star Trek show. And
he's
I mean that
super smart.
for real. And
you know what? Do you like him as Worf when we do the Saving Star Trek? When we recreate the episodes, do you like when he plays Worf?
I haven't had the pleasure of hearing that in particular, but I bet he does great.
We do sometimes in an episode. There's a scene that's so outrageous we have to reenact it. And what's great is Scogli with the episode where Worf deletes the Ferengi. And then he comes back, and the Vulculin, because Romulans and Vulcans act exactly the same on that show. The Vulculin, like Mexican priest, starts like cursing about Scogli was doing the funniest voice, man.
Padre says, "Oh, hey, Padre, happy Tuesday,
Padre.
Miss Jill." And Captain Finity says, "Jill's show is the light that brings us together."
Well, it is. It really is. I'm so glad that I got invited to be on.
And there's PDB's channel. I'm sorry your internet's no good, Franco, but I'm so glad you're here anyway. And Jim is saying hi to Kronos. No, says Captain Finity. The TV execs ignored PDB's advice to not renew Futurama comedy gold.
Yes, I understand what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Got
PDB says that Futurama should end. He just firmly believes that it's been a good run. Why do anymore? And a lot of people are going to agree with him, but
why risk it?
Jim I see where he's coming from.
I was going to work this morning, but my truck had a better idea and pop a brake line.
Ooh, glad you got out of that one without anyone getting hurt.
Then we have a series of questions. What is a Jill? Why is a Jill? How is a Jill? And that concludes our chat. So,
oh my God, we made it to the end.
Yeah, we did. So now I'm going to end my poll. We got 33 votes here.
Wow.
Poll.
A lot of people chomping at the bit to know what the deal is with this episode. And it looks like most of us think it's a pretty solid piece of Star Trek.
It is. And it really is. It is true Star Trek. And I love it very much. And even with the faults, it still remains true.
We gave everybody our best insights on why, what we could do to fix this and how we would have approached it if we were the writers, but we weren't. And I think that, just to imagine myself in their shoes is something. I mean, these people created an absolutely fantastic piece of science fiction. The episode is basically Robinson Crusoe in space. And then they tried to get out of the episode really quickly, maybe too quickly. And some lines just could have been better, but it's a good episode. And it looks like only 14% of you thought it was a C or less, which means 86% gave it a B or above, right?
That's right. We got 45% in the A range, 39% in the B range, 9% in the C range, and everything below that, D to F, is only 6%. So that's pretty great.
And let's face it, this episode, one of the things it gets by on is like strong personal performances by the 3 core Star Trek guys who are willing to use friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice to help each other and to get off the planet. And they're trying to save this woman too.
Mhm.
They,
Yeah.
they,
So
listen,
all in all, it was an episode, and I enjoyed
You
it.
know what? It was an episode.
At this point, actually, I have to run, so I'm not going to sound that insightful anymore.
Hit those
So-
like and follow buttons. We love you
Yes.
all.
Yes, we do. And thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for hanging out. Kronos voted Z minus, and I voted a B
Kronos
minus.
busting the curve.
hmm And hello to
Um,
Lemon Pie. I'm so sorry. I have to go like right now. I gotta run. I gotta run away.
But don't
Bye,
worry,
everybody.
before we leave, I'm putting my link in the chat.
right. Right. Okay, so remember to subscribe to Admiral Teague for saving Star Trek, and he's got his link here. So please tell us about your channel and what you're doing and stuff.
You may know me from following the adventures of a certain cowardly bald space robot who is not C-3PO. It is a show related to the world of Star Trek. It's fanfic, and I just want to go on the record here. Nothing after the middle of Star Trek Generations is canon to me. It's been a pleasure to be part of this panel, and I was so glad to be here with Pop and with Scotty, and of course with you. I really owe you so much. It was a bet here that got me to start doing live streams. So your chat asked for it. You reap what you sow.
I have. And also I want to remind everybody to subscribe to Pop Culture Curator. He was sick and he had to go to the doctor. So make sure to remember to subscribe to him, ring the bell, and go to his. Hopefully he'll be better tomorrow and be able to talk about what was the movie he's doing? He's doing Tremors tonight, hopefully.
Maybe it's just a touch of Rigelian flu. We have our fingers crossed for our good buddy, the Pop Culture Curator. He's the best. We really do love him, and he's been part of this channel since it started.
And I'm hoping you can come back for Doomsday Machine, Admiral Teague.
I am going to make a point of being here for Doomsday Machine, and I even have a little bit of video I guess I can give you for it if you want to use it. That is one of my favorite Star Trek episodes. And what's weird is I was looking for a war movie to review because that's something I'm going to start doing. And Summersby, it turns out, really isn't a war movie. But you know what? The guy from the Doomsday Machine is the preacher in it 30 years later.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, William Wyndham. I'm like, wait, there's something about that insane preacher guy.
Mm-hmm.
And there he was in the flesh.
And there he goes.
But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff in the Doomsday Machine.
So to take us out, I've got the preview for next week's episode, and it's going to be Friday's Child. And so I'll play the clip for Friday's Child.
Captain's log, stardate 3498.9. Lieutenant Commander Scott in temporary command. Our inability to reach the landing party is strange.
Say to yourself, the child is mine.
It's yours. You will not touch me in that manner.
Communicators, weapons.
Sound battle stations.
And I actually have one more clip that this episode reminds me of. Where is it? Let's see if I can find it.
Fridays.
Look, I'm a doctor, not an escalator. Spock, give me a hand.
It's another great. That episode's fun. I like Friday's Child.
So goodbye, everybody. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great Tuesday.
Thanks for having me, Jill, and goodbye to all you out there in YouTube land.
Bye.